Chapter 2373. You've saved up so many years of gentleness and romance, and you're so eager to give it to me. I can't take it any more. Again. You won't cry until you see the coffin. Shi Danfeng's fist landed directly on Chu Yang's forehead. He felt as if his skull was about to split open, and he saw stars. This damned woman is so ruthless. I'll tease you even if I die. Otherwise, I'll be mesmerized by this damned woman. Let's make your brutality even more violent. Chu Yang cursed in his heart. You're saying that when I'm old and all my hair falls out, only you will find the position of my forehead and give me a kiss, right? Bang bang bang. Shi Danfeng finally exploded. She turned into a female Tyrannosaurus and violently beat up Chu Yang. After the storm, Chu Yang's whole body was in pain, and there seemed to be no place on his body that was unharmed. However, when Shi Danfeng looked down at Chu Yang and approached him with her beautiful face, he continued, "What I like is when we're face to face, eyes to eyes, nose to nose. We don't say anything and don't do anything, but there won't be any awkwardness." Shameless bastard, shameless! Shi Danfeng was fuming with anger. She was doubting life. Was there really such a shameless person in the world? If there's an end to this relationship, I'm willing to hold on until the last second and let you leave first. Chu Yang was completely furious. He was already sullen enough when he was suppressed by Zhou Kaichang and the other 5 in the academy. He originally thought that he could have some fun in the Saint Monarch Academy, but he met such a damned woman. He had changed his mind long ago. Even if he died, he would flirt with this woman and make her embarrassed to death. You've been frivolous with me time and time again. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Shi Danfeng's expression suddenly became incomparably cold. Her killing intent was dense, and her words were as cold as ice. Ha ha! Chu Yang laughed and sneered. You know that I'm frivolous with you. Since you know, why don't you leave immediately? Why do you respond to me time and time again? It's like flirting. Don't you know that beating is affection and scolding is love? Shi Danfeng almost fainted. However, what this shameless bastard said was not the least bit reasonable. If she had a bit of brain, she would have left in a carefree manner. How could such a situation occur? How could she be entangled with this bastard? I've already tried my best to show my viciousness and shamelessness. I've put on a posture that women shouldn't get close to, but you still want to stick to me again and again. If you're not in love with me, what else can it be? Chu Yang lay on the ground, spread out his arms and legs, and said heroically, "Since that's the case, I'll do as you say." When Shi Danfeng heard the first half of the sentence, she almost went crazy. When she heard the second half, she directly exploded. If a man is not bad, a woman will not love him. This is indeed a wise saying. You guys just like us men who are cheap and bad, and always say that you met scumbags. I think you guys shouldn't complain. You guys are just cheap and you deserve it. Suddenly, Chu Yang felt a chill in his vitals. His soul almost left his body and he hurriedly dodged. Rumble! Those slender legs kicked the ground. Chu Yang's whole body was covered in cold sweat. He felt cold from head to toe. He was secretly rejoicing. Otherwise, something big would have happened. Bang! 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 In the end, he couldn't avoid the violent beating. He was beaten until he grimaced in pain. Shi Danfeng was also panting. Her chest was heaving up and down. It was unknown whether it was because of anger or tiredness. Can I trouble you? Chu Yang continued to court death. Please don't fall in love with me. In addition, let me say this again. If you let me go, you'll also let you go. Let's not hurt each other anymore. We'll part on good terms. Buzz. Chapter 2374. Chu Yang was still not afraid. I'm not wrong. Your emotions fluctuate so much. Even though you're very angry now, but when you think about it later, it'll definitely be unforgettable. You'll definitely think of me again and again. Perhaps you've already fallen in love with me. And love is so wonderful. You can doubt my words, but I ask you to listen to your own heart. You are really shameless. Although Shi Danfeng was very angry, she didn't want to beat him to death. She didn't want to be entangled with Chu Yang anymore. I correct you. This is confidence. Don't you find that I am very handsome? Chu Yang grimaced in pain, but he still showed off his lips and tongue, and added, "An excellent woman falling in love with an excellent man is called a match made in heaven. I am an excellent man. Of course, you can refuse to admit that you are not an excellent woman. I fell in love with you, but you didn't fall in love with me, right?" Shi Danfeng sneered again and again. She suddenly realized that she was shamelessly talking about love. Her beautiful face couldn't help but blush. She also realized that Chu Yang was right. If they continued like this, it would really become a kind of flirting. You are right. You did fall in love with me, but I didn't fall in love with you. Chu Yang directly and shamelessly admitted, and deliberately emphasized, "You are indeed not excellent enough. At least, I don't like you." In front of women, a man's narcissism and shamelessness could be limitless. Women needed men to give them rich emotional experiences, and men needed to win women's hearts. Each took what he needed. Of course, men usually had to pay a certain price. Especially Chu Yang, who forced himself, the price was more serious. Bang bang bang. Beating was the theme that Shi Danfeng and Chu Yang could never leave. Chu Yang swore in his heart that he would definitely get back at her one by one. "Go forward. If you dare to say one more word, I will kill you immediately." Humph! Chu Yang despised in his heart. This woman had already reached the limit of her patience, and could only do as she was told. The other end of the sea of learning was also shrouded in a thick white fog. The fog was thicker and the visibility was lower. Even Chu Yang could not see more than 10 meters in front of him. His senses were severely limited. Of course, this was under the condition that he did not use his Wendao cultivation. The Saint Monarch Mystery Realm was left behind and prepared for Wendao cultivators. Chu Yang was even more certain of this. Of course, he also noticed that Shi Danfeng was following behind him very cautiously, just like a little wife who was carefully following her husband in front to check for danger. There must be great danger. Otherwise, this damned woman wouldn't use me as a scout. When this thought appeared in Chu Yang's mind, the sound of fire rang out from all directions. Soon after, he discovered that countless flames had appeared in the white fog, completely surrounding and drowning the two of them. The flames engulfed the sky and burned endlessly. The world of white fog instantly turned into a world of flames. Flames were jumping everywhere in the world. Chu Yang and Shi Danfeng were also ignited in an instant, turning into two flaming people. The intense pain of the burning immediately attacked, causing Chu Yang to fall into panic. This sudden fire was too fast and overbearing. It burned everything in an instant. The fusion of the Martial Path Calamity Fire and the Wendao Calamity Fire was far inferior. Skin, flesh, tendons, bones, organs, mana, and so on were ignited in an instant. However, when it came into contact with the mana transformed from the One Qi in Chu Yang's body, or the Wendao rule, the power of the flames suddenly decreased. Chapter 2375. A woman's virtue was to have no talent. Chu Yang was all too familiar with this sentence. This was the dregs of the feudal culture, a great embodiment of the preference for men over women. In the Saint King Mystery Realm, the inheritance left behind in the relics of the Wendao era rejected women. Because Chu Yang brought Shi Danfeng to pass through the test, he violated the rules and caused a fire to burn the sky. Fortunately, he had the cultivation of the Wendao, or he would have been killed by this woman, Shi Danfeng. He even thought that the reason why he didn't die before was definitely not because Shi Danfeng was soft-hearted, but because she wanted to keep him to lead the way and pass through the test. Because of his cultivation of the Wendao, Chu Yang barely resisted the burning of the fire, but it was still extremely dangerous. The first reason was that it was a test for him, and the second reason was that he had indeed violated the rules and brought Shi Danfeng to pass through the test. He could only sit down cross-legged and resist the burning of the fire. Shi Danfeng was already prepared for this. Although she was a little surprised when the fire appeared, she immediately made a response. She used her cultivation to resist the fire of the One Tao. This fire was naturally the fire of the One Tao, and it was an extremely shocking fire of the One Tao. A domain first appeared around her, as if it was the domain of a god. It was very sacred. Auspicious clouds, auspicious light, and so on all appeared, but they were burned in an instant. With a loud rumble, a supreme figure appeared behind her. At first glance, this figure was the figure of a man. It was very tall and majestic, and a brilliant power spread out. Then, it suddenly sat down. Dong! The heavens and earth shook violently. As soon as the huge figure sat down, a golden palace spread out like a grand painting. It was grand, tall, solemn, and heavily guarded. It was like an imperial palace, and that figure sat high up in the middle. At this moment, Shi Danfeng also landed in this group of palaces and was completely protected by this group of palaces. If this palace was a palace, then she was now where the concubines were. When Chu Yang saw this scene, he understood why Shi Danfeng could affect the Saint King Mystery Realm and display her cultivation of the martial path. She definitely had a secret. Her martial soul seemed to be the concubine of the Celestial Emperor. Under the protection of the Sky Emperor, she was able to change the space of the Saint King Mystery Realm and withstand the burning of the fire of Wen Dao. The way of Confucianism emphasized loyalty to the Emperor. Naturally, the concubines of the Emperor could not be harmed. However, if the concubine was not sensible and forcefully destroyed the orthodoxy of the way of Confucianism, she would be severely punished. That was the gist of it. Chu Yang's deduction seemed to be correct. The palace that appeared was quickly burned down. The fire of Wen Dao had already burned Shi Danfeng's delicate body. Chu Yang was also being burned by the fire of Wen Dao. He had ignited the divine flame for his cultivation in the God's world, and he had ignited the nirvana flame for his cultivation in the heavenly soul world. Wen Dao did not. At this moment, the flames of Wen Dao were equivalent to the flames of nirvana. After this trial, his cultivation of Wen Dao would become even more stable, and perhaps even undergo a qualitative change. The two of them were not far from each other. One in front and one behind, they sat down cross-legged, resisting the burning of the fire of Wen Dao. They fell into complete silence. The sound of the fire of Wen Dao burning fiercely made everything seem even quieter. In Chu Yang's two-dimensional heavenly abode coordinates, the deduced history of his previous life was being burned one by one. It seemed to be correcting it, but then it seemed to show a hesitant expression, as if it wasn't sure if what Chu Yang said was true or if what it knew was true. Chapter 2376. I've turned from a puppet into a person of flesh and blood? He had such a feeling. After pondering for a while, he understood. Literature and martial arts could be yin and yang, hard and soft. If one's cultivation of martial arts was hard, then one's body would be tempered by martial arts. Naturally, it would be too hard. If it was too hard, it would break easily. The cultivation of literature was soft. The body was tempered by literature. This was the combination of hardness and softness. It was a step further and more perfect. It could be invulnerable. It seems that I was right to choose the Saint King College this time. I didn't expect to have such a harvest at the beginning. This time, Chu Yang's strength and dominance had not been weakened. Instead, it had become even more ferocious and domineering. Under the combination of hardness and softness, it had reached a higher level. What a great harvest! When everything was over and Chu Yang opened his eyes, he couldn't help but reveal a satisfied smile on his face. Then, his eyes suddenly straightened. His two eyeballs were completely fixed at a certain place. Amidst the raging flames, Shi Danfeng was like a spirit tainted by magic. She was completely oblivious to everything around her. At this moment, her clothes had been completely burned to ashes. Her perfect and flawless body was directly exposed to the world. She was holy and sparkling, emitting a dazzling light. It was as if she was carved out of ivory. Amidst the flames, her black hair fluttered in the wind. She had a sharp nose, pearly white teeth, and red lips that were enchanting and sexy. Her swan-like snow-white neck, her slender figure, and her fatal curves could be said to have opened Pandora's box, and she presented an irresistible and peerless temptation. What are you looking at? Are your eyes on fire? After Shi Danfeng resisted the fire of literature, she immediately realized that Chu Yang's gaze was too invasive. It was so invasive that she had goosebumps all over her body. It's on fire. Chu Yang nodded and said with great certainty, not only is it on fire, but it's about to be burned to ashes. Take your dog eyes away immediately. Otherwise, I don't mind killing you right now. Shi Danfeng felt more and more uncomfortable. The feeling of being violated made her even more uneasy. I'm enjoying the scenery and exercising my body and mind. Can you not disturb me? Chu Yang's big eyes didn't even blink. His eyes shone even brighter, like a miser who had seen a great treasure. His eyes were a bit similar to a wolf's. Lecher, it seems like you really want to die. Shi Danfeng sneered. Her smile was enough to topple a city, and it was filled with endless temptation. That kind of devilish smile was extremely seductive. In addition, that dazzling white light was truly blinding to the eyes. Together, it could be said to be synonymous with sinking into oblivion. I'm telling the truth, I'm seriously appreciating it. Chu Yang just smiled. He didn't care about Shi Danfeng at all. He had already figured it out. This was the Saint Monarch Mystery Realm. To him, entering it was like a dragon entering the sea. It was even better than entering the Saint Monarch Mystery Realm. However, Shi Danfeng was greatly suppressed inside. The deeper she went, the more so it became. Lecher, I'll fulfill your wish. Shi Danfeng couldn't bear it anymore. Her aura suddenly fluctuated, and her head of black hair fluttered in the wind. Although her expression was cold, at this moment, she was still able to captivate all living things. The temptation that she exuded was hard to resist. However, there was a bit of confusion in her beautiful eyes. That Lecher's gaze was really too strange. He was staring straight at her, and it made her heart sway even more. Come on, quickly come and kill me. Chu Yang crooked his finger at her, extremely provocative. Whoosh! Chapter 2377. A piercing shriek resounded through the entire Sage Ruler Mystery Land. Shi Danfeng almost wished she could die immediately. She was completely submerged by the feeling of extreme shame. She couldn't describe that feeling, and she didn't even dare to imagine it. She was completely naked, and her reaction was so slow. Not only did she let that Lecher take advantage of her, but she was also mocked and looked down upon by him. Why are you so agitated? Are you trying to make life difficult for my ears or your throat? Chu Yang couldn't help but dig his ears. This woman's scream was really sharp. In an instant, he felt as if his eardrums were being pierced. Whoosh! Shi Danfeng fled frantically. She wanted to leave Chu Yang's sight as soon as possible. I didn't see the end. Now it's all over. As Shi Danfeng screamed, her body suddenly tensed up like a drawn bow. Her hair stood on end, and a layer of goosebumps appeared on her body. She also felt as if she had been hit by a stick. With a plop, she directly came into contact with the ground, creating a large pit. Then she disappeared. Is this a witch or a witch blowing up a pit? After saying that, Chu Yang touched his chin and praised himself. The word blowing up a pit is indeed appropriate. Wasn't it blowing up a pit just now? Who said it wasn't digging a pit? I'll definitely be angry with him. It seems that finding a crack in the ground and drilling into it is more appropriate. No, It should be said that creating a pit in the ground and drilling into it is more accurate to describe it. Waha. When Shi Danfeng heard Chu Yang's various sarcastic remarks, she almost died from embarrassment. Her whole body seemed to be burning, and her snow-white skin turned pink. She couldn't say anything. She really wanted to die immediately. When anger surged in her heart, she took out a set of clothes from her spatial device at the fastest speed, put it on, and then charged out directly. Rumble! The ground shook violently. From the endless dust, Shi Danfeng rushed out like a violent dragon. Her beautiful eyes were shining brightly, and her killing intent was burning the sky. However, her pretty face was still red. Her chest rose and fell, and her breathing was intense and rapid. She was too ashamed and angry. Wasn't this not letting her live? Is there a need to be like this? Where did your boldness go? Also, what happened to seducing me and making me fall in love with you? Chu Yang spread out his hands and shrugged his shoulders. You! Shi Danfeng was extremely angry. She was so angry that she almost fell from the sky. Goodbye, silly girl. I'll definitely find a chance to beat you up in the future. Whoosh! Chu Yang moved and fled into the depths of the Sage King Mystery Land at an extremely fast speed. Die! Shi Danfeng almost went completely crazy. She chased after Chu Yang crazily. She was surrounded by a bright light, resisting the suppression of the Saint King's secret realm. She was wearing a purple dress, and like a purple lightning bolt, she tore through the void and appeared behind Chu Yang in an instant. Chu Yang was shocked, and then he said disdainfully, "TSK, what are you pretending to be serious for? Do you think I don't know that you deliberately let me see and then said that I tainted your innocence so that you can blame it on me? Isn't that right?" Hearing this, Shi Danfeng's delicate body trembled, and then she paused. That lecher had taken advantage of her and was still pretending to be innocent. He actually slandered her like this. My firepower is not enough, then I don't care anymore. Chu Yang was really afraid of this woman. If he was caught by her, even if he didn't die, he would be miserable. He attacked again. I didn't want to say that you're a hypocrite, shameless woman, but I have to say it now. You damned woman, you're really shameless. After doing such a shameful thing, you still want to pretend to be innocent. In the extreme speed, Shi Danfeng's chest tightened. She lost control of her body and fell directly. The ground rumbled again. That loud sound made Chu Yang feel guilty. He almost couldn't help but tremble. It's over, this woman is too weak. She must be going crazy. I'm going to kill you, I must kill you. Chapter 2378. Rumble. Chu Yang and Shi Danfeng were flying at high speed. Sonic booms resounded continuously and the distance between them was getting closer and closer. At this moment, Shi Danfeng seemed to have been overly stimulated. It was as if she had changed into another person. Extremely dazzling light flowed from her delicate body and flowed on the surface of her body, forming an armor-like protective layer. Rays of light burst out from her beautiful eyes like the sun. It was extremely frightening. You will definitely die. Her voice had also become extremely cold. It was completely different from before. At this moment, Shi Danfeng seemed to have completely degenerated into a demon. She was cold and emotionless. She seemed to have no human emotions at all. Her entire body was emitting light as if she was a deity. She was like a demon and a deity. Her combat strength was off the charts. Chu Yang could clearly feel that her strength had increased by another level. It was as if she was about to step into the great Emperor realm. What kind of breakthrough can make her like this? It seems that she is an extremely conservative woman. Although she looks I've really dug my own grave this time. Chu Yang couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. If he fell into her hands, he couldn't imagine the consequences. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Since his speed was inferior, he could only rely on his skills. He directly used the 5 elements' disordered steps and the uniqueness of his magic power. With a single movement, he transformed into multiple copies of himself and spread out in all directions. One after another, they transformed into themselves one after another. In the blink of an eye, many copies of Chu Yang burst out and tried to fill the sky. They were densely packed and mixed together. It was dazzling. He had tried this method many times. It seemed to be the same this time. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Shi Danfeng waved her long sleeves. Immediately, the sky darkened and then a starry sky appeared. Immediately, streaks of starlight pierced through the sky. They were densely packed like falling stars, completely enveloping the space. Bang, bang, bang. The two of them exchanged blows. The starlight pierced through the copies of Chu Yang and caused them to explode. The sky was immediately cleared and no longer seemed as crowded and chaotic as before. A group attack. This woman actually has such an amazing method. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes. He had no choice but to release his clones and do the same thing again. This time, it was even more exaggerated. The sky instantly became chaotic, occupied by countless Chu Yang, and all of them were running wildly. Numerous beams of starlight shot down again, but they couldn't do anything to Chu Yang's true body, his clones, or the Dharma idols of his true body and clones. In midair, there were 30 or so Chu Yang that had not been destroyed. Then, these 30 Chu Yang transformed into 60, then 120, then 240. Once again, there was a dense and messy scene, confusing one's line of sight. Shi Danfeng's beautiful eyes couldn't help but tremble slightly. Finally, she revealed her emotions again. She seemed very surprised. This lecture actually has such means. No wonder he could pass the sea of knowledge so easily. In the chase, Chu Yang didn't dare to say anything frivolous to provoke Shi Danfeng again. As the two of them flew at high speed, the pressure on them increased. Naturally, this was for Shi Danfeng. Chu Yang had the cultivation of the Wen Dao. The Saint King Mystery Realm didn't have any suppression on him at all. The deeper he went, the more he was like a fish in water. The distance between the two of them was pulled apart again. Chapter 2379. Even if you flee to the ends of the earth, I'll still kill you. Amidst the sky-burning flames, Shi Danfeng knew that the suppression was getting stronger and stronger, but she still ignored the burning flames and chased after him in a frenzy. Chu Yang felt his scalp go numb when he heard the sound of her gnashing her teeth. Goodbye. Layers of symbols leaped out from her eyes. It was as if there were 2 large suns in her pupils, and there was a scene of stars collapsing. It was extremely terrifying. Her gaze was even more heartless, and there was only the intent to kill. When Chu Yang saw this, he suddenly could not hold back his anger. Wasn't it just a glance? Was there a need to go so far? Besides, he did not touch her at all. Which man would be able to control his pair of hands in that kind of situation? As the saying goes, it's easy for a man to chase a woman, but it's easy for a woman to chase a man. If you continue to chase after her like this, you'll be separated by a mountain. Don't you feel ashamed? His cheap mouth moved again. The dozen or so clones of his main body spoke at the same time, and all of them poured into Shi Danfeng's ears. I'll tell you the truth. You're not my cup of tea, so stop pestering me. Don't you know that this is very annoying? In this process, the distance between the two of them was pulled even further apart. When Shi Danfeng's figure was about to disappear from his sight, a huge fire suddenly sprang out in front of him, burning toward Chu Yang. Fire, pink big fire. It was very strange and extremely sudden. What the hell? Chu Yang was shocked and immediately sensed that something was wrong. He felt the great suppression of the Saint King Mystery Realm. He sensed it again carefully and vaguely received a message. You've ruined a girl's innocence, so you have to be responsible for her. His vision turned black and he almost fainted. Something like this actually happened. The Saint King Mystery Realm has its own consciousness, or did some expert sense all of this? No. Chu Yang frowned. In his senses, the Saint King Mystery Realm definitely did not have any consciousness. There were only rules operating, and it was a little chaotic. Only such a ridiculous thing would appear. A woman's virtue was to be untalented, and what he had sensed just now, that if he ruined a girl's innocence, he had to be responsible for her. This was all feudal etiquette, especially the restraint and oppression of women. However, he never expected that this bullshit would actually affect him as well. The further he moved forward, the greater the resistance he encountered. At this moment, not only was Wen Dao's cultivation unable to reduce this resistance, it was instead increasing it, causing him to be practically unable to move forward, and he wanted to cry but had no tears. Once that woman caught up to him, he could only hope that she would not kill her husband or something like that. Otherwise, he would definitely die. The pink flames in this world became more and more intense. Waves of pink aura appeared and surged out. Soon, it replaced the white fog and enveloped the surroundings. A whooshing sound was heard. Chu Yang turned around to look, and shockingly saw that Shi Danfeng had already caught up with him. She was no longer burned by the flames. Instead, she was enveloped by a pink air current. It was as if she was covered by a pink veil. A strange aura pervaded the air, causing the entire world to become gentle. This is bad. That woman is definitely not being suppressed by the Saint Monarch Mystery Realm. Instead, I am being suppressed. In the blink of an eye, Chu Yang's situation suddenly changed. He was extremely anxious and cursed in his heart. Damn feudal etiquette, it's really killing me. He could only worry helplessly. The pink flames grew more and more, pouring down from the sky. They were extremely gentle, like the hand of a lover, and also like the spring rain, silently moistening things. Chapter 2380. At this moment, the pink flames jumped and completely drowned Chu Yang. In an instant, he suddenly became restless. It was as if a ferocious beast had rushed out of his body. Endless desire almost drowned him. His consciousness was also completely pink. As a man, he couldn't be more aware of the restlessness in his body. This, Chu Yang was a little dumbfounded. Don't come any closer. Don't you feel that something is wrong? Don't you feel the restlessness in the deepest part of your body? Once you get closer, I'm afraid you won't be able to take it. Facing Shi Danfeng, who was approaching rapidly, Chu Yang shouted anxiously. The power of the literary path in the Sage King Mystery Realm had reached such a level of control over people's hearts that it was almost impossible to resist. No wonder people said that the literary path was the best at controlling people's hearts. To be precise, the Confucian path was better at this. Based on the morality formed by the Confucian path, the pressure and restraint on people was too terrifying. Chu Yang felt it clearly this time. If I kill you before that happens, none of this will happen, and nothing can happen. This was Shi Danfeng's thought process. It was extremely cold, and she wanted to kill him at all costs. Do you think you have the ability to do that? Or do you really want to do something with me? Chu Yang was a little flustered and exasperated. He shouted again and again, I just took a look at you. Even if I took your virginity, I have to take responsibility for you? Also, can you be sure that when you kill me later, the rules won't change? Do you think it's possible to murder your own husband? Just a look. Even if I took your virginity. It was too easy for him to say. Her virginity had been completely taken. That lecher still refused to admit it. Shi Danfeng exploded. However, when she stared at him coldly, her eyes were burning like a woman who hadn't seen her husband for a long time. This damned woman is really stubborn. I can only think of other ways. In his anxiety, Chu Yang immediately came up with an idea. Immediately, his original body mixed with a dozen doppelgangers and separated, successfully escaping. The divine doppelganger was used to attract Shi Danfeng's attention. The divine doppelganger could only escape. However, the deeper he escaped, the more the divine doppelganger's consciousness was blurred, even though the pink flames did not hurt his body. His desire became more intense and difficult to control. At this time, Fairy Shi Danfeng had already arrived and was fighting with the deity's avatar. She was like a real immortal and was completely invincible. With the support of the Saint King's secret realm, she was invincible and could not be harmed at all. It was as if she was standing on the moral high ground, condemning and judging Chu Yang. Chu Yang was no match for her in the first place. Now, he was even more worried. Fortunately, she was also seriously affected. Her consciousness was almost blurred. Originally, she had several chances to kill his divine avatar. But in the end, her hand gently fell on the face of his divine avatar. She gently stroked his face. Her skin was like ice and her bones were like jade. Her entire body was snow-white and delicate, and it was wrapped in a pure and holy luster. It was like the body of a celestial fairy. Her consciousness struggled free, and she immediately attacked Chu Yang ruthlessly again. Every time she hit, Chu Yang's divine doppelganger was directly sent flying. He was about to explode completely. It was an absolute suppression. It was unstoppable and invincible. It should be enough. My original body should have escaped far enough. Chu Yang's divine avatar's consciousness was about to collapse. He didn't dare to persist any longer. With a bang, he directly self-detonated. However, just as he was about to completely escape, a great rule suddenly descended. His original body was actually directly sucked over. Fuck you, damn Sage King Mystery Realm. Is there anyone who can play matchmaker like you? At that moment, Chu Yang was almost stunned. He hurriedly used the Destiny Twins' martial soul. However, another great rule power descended and actually cut off his thoughts. He was horrified. The last era's Confucian Tao, the control of the human heart, has actually reached such a terrifying level? What a terrifying control and control ability. He could not even think about using the Destiny Twins' martial soul. He could not help but feel a chill down his spine. At this time, he suddenly felt a warm breath. It was Shi Danfeng's breath. It was extremely close. Shi Danfeng was also completely lost. With a pring sound in the end, he was directly pushed down. Then, a sparkling white and flawless body approached. Bang! Chapter 2381. In the Saint Monarch's secret realm, on the other side of the Sea of Learning, there were huge pink flames everywhere. The pink flames filled the sky and enveloped the entire world, turning it into a world of flames. The pink air current was surging and flowing. The sound of the raging flames seemed to be the only sound in this world of flames. Although the flames were burning, they were not destroyed. The pink flames seemed to be the ultimate interpretation of romance and passion, and also seemed to be the fire that was about to be born. Finally, all the flames disappeared. The other side of the Sea of Learning regained its tranquility and was once again enveloped by the fog. It was as if the world of flames had turned into a world of fog. Chu Yang had already woken up. There was nothing more realistic and more convincing than this. It was just like how he was hugging the sleeping Shi Danfeng. It was a fact. Everything that had happened before was also a fact. He felt like he was in a dream. A woman's virtue was to have no talent. If a man ruined a woman's innocence, he had to be responsible for it. The thought of using the Destiny Twins' martial spirits was directly cut off when he recalled every process of his encounter with Shi Danfeng. The focus of his mind should have been Shi Danfeng, but the focus in his heart quickly shifted to Wen Dao's terrifying control over people's hearts. He couldn't help but be shocked in his heart. His back turned cold and his scalp went numb. This was too terrifying. The hardest thing to control was the mind of a person. That was why there was a saying, "Even if you kill me, you can still defeat me." However, the power of Wen Dao in the Saint Monarch's secret realm, the rules of Wen Dao, could easily interfere with and even control his thoughts. In this way, under such control, how was a person any different from a puppet when their mind was completely controlled? The control of the mind of Wen Dao is simply terrifying. The more Chu Yang thought about it, the more he felt a chill run down his spine. If he lived in such a world, his thoughts and consciousness would almost be wiped out. He would completely lose himself. Everyone was like this. I am not myself. My thoughts were completely controlled by someone else. What kind of world would that be? Some people are still alive, but they are already dead. He could not help but think of such a sentence. Such a world was almost equivalent to death. It had completely lost its vitality and vitality. Who? Chu Yang let out a long breath as he suppressed all the thoughts and feelings in his heart, as well as shock and so on. When he looked at Shi Danfeng in his arms, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. Let's deal with this first. If she wakes up, she'll probably fight me to the death. Run. The first thing that came to his mind was to leave before Shi Danfeng woke up. However, he quickly rejected that idea. Things had already happened, and the problem was there. Escaping or running away was definitely the most foolish choice. He had done too many stupid things like this. If he still couldn't face the problem head-on, he was afraid that his previous life and this life would have been a waste. After that, he thought about whether or not he should take responsibility, but he realized that in such a world, it was completely impossible. At most, it's just one life. Let's just be straightforward. What's there to think about? He got up and took out some clothes from Shi Danfeng's spatial artifact. He put them on her and waited. The wait was long. Shi Danfeng seemed to have already died. She didn't wake up for a long time. Since you're awake, why are you still pretending? In the silence, Chu Yang suddenly spoke. Shi Danfeng suddenly opened her eyes. Instantly, her eyes were like two small suns, bursting with dazzling light. They formed two beams of light that directly pierced through the white fog, and then stared coldly at Chu Yang. Chapter 2382. Shi Danfeng's gaze contained a great mental attack. If it weren't for Chu Yang's strong mental strength, he would have been obliterated by her. He could understand. She pretended to be asleep because she didn't know how to face the situation in front of her. Being exposed made her feel even more ashamed and ashamed. Such coldness and murderous intent were just a cover for her embarrassment. First question: kill me, let me go, and be my woman. Now you have three choices, which one will you choose? Chu Yang directly attacked her heart and didn't give her time to recover. He was very rough. After a pause, he added, "If you don't speak, I will tacitly accept that you choose to be my woman." Shi Danfeng quickly stood up. A trace of panic flashed through her cold expression, but she quickly regained her composure. Her expression was cold and murderous. After a while, she still didn't answer and didn't do anything. The two confronted each other or talked about awkwardness. Chu Yang didn't feel uncomfortable at all. However, Shi Danfeng felt very uncomfortable, very sullen, and very angry in her heart. Previously, if Chu Yang hadn't gently helped her dress, which gave him extra points, even if he hadn't died, he would have definitely been beaten up. From now on, I am your man. Shi Danfeng actually had no choice. She couldn't make a choice because of her reserved nature. Chu Yang directly said in a domineering manner. Of course, he didn't know if he was doing the right thing, so he just followed his heart. Second, do you really think that I don't dare to kill you? A fragrant wind drifted and a dark shadow flashed. Shi Danfeng arrived in an instant. Her delicate hand had already landed on Chu Yang's forehead. It was about to land, but it stopped there. It was as if a knife was placed on his neck. Chu Yang didn't panic. His line of sight was blocked by Shi Danfeng's delicate hand, but the fragrant wind entered his nose and he could still see Shi Danfeng. When he raised his hand to grab Shi Danfeng's wrist, he clearly felt her delicate body tremble. Although it was only for a moment, it was so strong and clear. Then, he laughed. Looks like you can't kill me. A night together as husband and wife, 100 nights of devotion. I believe that now. As soon as he sensed Sir Danfeng's anger and embarrassment, he quickly said, How do you know that this kind of thing is a bad thing? Perhaps one day in the future, you will be glad that something like this happened because you met me. Shameless, extremely shameless. Sir Danfeng's face and ears turned red. She ridiculed Chu Yang like a madwoman. It was hard enough to give women a sense of security and let them be sure that everything that happened with them was the best. If they didn't have a little confidence, then they would have nothing. Hence, Chu Yang only smiled. Then, he pulled Sir Danfeng into his arms and hugged her tightly. No matter how Sir Danfeng struggled, she couldn't break free. At the same time, his voice also entered Sir Danfeng's ears. Isn't this better? You won't be able to see my hateful face and hateful smile. Won't your awkwardness, shame, and helplessness lessen? Chu Yang quickly added, Even though there's direct and intimate contact, but what does that matter? Although we are strangers now, we will be familiar with each other in the future. And from now on, wherever we are will be your home. Sir Danfeng was naturally struggling. You don't have to struggle. I'll give you an excuse. Here, we have entered the Saint King mystery realm. You are greatly suppressed and your strength is inferior to mine. No matter how hard you try, you can't break free. You can only let me do whatever I want. It's not that you are shameless, Chapter 2383. Do you feel better now? Sir Danfeng's body trembled when she heard this sentence. Then, she became completely silent. At this moment, Chu Yang was also extremely excited. He couldn't help but laugh in his heart. Haha, I finally succeeded. He really didn't understand women. Everything about women was just speculation and conjecture in the past. However, his speculation and conjecture had never been successful. This time, he actually succeeded. Indeed, not only did it require sincerity, it also required skill. He sighed in his heart and said at the same time, Although the beginning was very bad and messy, as if you had a bad hand of cards, the result may not be bad if you play it well. Let's start now, okay? Let go. How could Sir Danfeng answer? How could Chu Yang let go? From now on, you have to learn to love me. However, I have to remind you that it's easy for me to fall in love with you because you're very beautiful. However, if a woman only has beauty, I'm afraid it's not enough. You need to make me fall in love with you in other ways. After a pause, Chu Yang smiled proudly and said, My requirements for you are not low. At the beginning, it was still okay. When she heard Chu Yang praise her beauty, Sir Danfeng was very shy and even a little flustered. However, at the end, everything turned into embarrassment and anger. Are you worthy? You mean you're Xiaoxiang's talented girl? Chu Yang laughed evilly. If I'm not a talented girl, I'm not worthy. I belong to the talented girl category. Shameless. Sir Danfeng struggled fiercely again, but she couldn't break free at all. Give up. This great genius is now learning from the overbearing CEO. You have to cooperate even if you don't want to. Overbearing CEO? Sir Danfeng directly asked in her mind, but she didn't ask. With her current relationship with Chu Yang, it was impossible for her to take the initiative to ask. Chu Yang was enjoying it. How could he explain? Suddenly, he smiled evilly and said, Wife, you didn't experience the process just now. I want to start the second time. As soon as he finished speaking, Sir Danfeng screamed in panic. Her screams were so loud that they almost pierced a hole in the sky. She struggled with all her might. Although her cultivation was higher than Chu Yang's, under the suppression of the Saint King mystery realm, she was no match for him at all. When she accepted her fate, Chu Yang only lightly tapped her forehead and got up from her body. He laughed and said, Little fool, I was lying to you, ha ha. Bang. Sir Danfeng flew into a rage out of humiliation and sent Chu Yang flying with a kick. With a whoosh, she ran away like a mad woman with a red face. As for the nickname Chu Yang gave her, she didn't have the time to refute it. I say, my wife, don't you want to see your husband's true appearance? When the time comes, you can't even recognize your own husband. While speaking, Chu Yang used the celestial devil walk art and changed back to his original appearance. However, Shi Danfeng didn't seem to have heard him. She didn't react at all and didn't even turn her head. This was completely different from what he had imagined. He thought that Shi Danfeng would say, "Who cares?" But she didn't. Women are women. I'll never be able to figure it out. Chu Yang shook his head. Then, he loudly said in Shi Danfeng's direction, "My name is Chu Yang from the Eastern Wilderness. Go out and ask around. You should know where I come from and my past." Shangguan Lan's fiancé? Shi Danfeng's angry voice sounded. Chu Yang was mentally prepared, but he was still shocked. As for her other emotions, he didn't want to guess. He just said, "If you know, then you have to fight for my favor. Hold on to me tightly, or I'll run away. Get lost." Chapter 2384. As for Chu Yang, Shi Danfeng still did not respond. To be honest, she was more surprised than angry, or perhaps she was not angry at all. In the Central Continent, it was normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. Even if the incident in the Saint King's secret realm did not happen, such a thing would still happen if she married someone else. Therefore, she was truly just completely shocked. The divine fragrance genius Shangguan Lan. Even she was slightly weaker than her, but that shameless scoundrel was actually Shangguan Lan's fiancé? Shangguan Lan's fiancé was a hot topic in the Central Continent. Therefore, Shi Danfeng tried to imagine what kind of person Shangguan Lan's fiancé was. Why would she take a fancy to a country bumpkin in the Eastern Wilderness? Calling him a country bumpkin was already polite. In fact, he could be said to be a country bumpkin among country bumpkins. At this moment, she did not need to imagine that the country bumpkin among country bumpkins was right in front of her. She had a very deep and intimate contact with the country bumpkin among country bumpkins. Some things did not need to be confirmed. Shangguan Lan's fiancé, that scoundrel called Chu Yang, was indeed shocking. He could easily pass the test. However, the most shocking thing was now, after she and Chu Yang had sex in the Saint King's secret realm, when she thought of Chu Yang and admitted that she was that scoundrel's woman, she was no longer suppressed. When she was a little conflicted and wavered, the suppression immediately oppressed her. It changed constantly according to the changes in her heart. It was hard to imagine how that scoundrel could be so respected that even the sage monarch mystery realm would give him face. One had to know that the sage monarch mystery realm was not a person at all. It did not have a consciousness, only rules operating. Could it be that that scoundrel has a great relationship with the era of Wendao? Shi Danfeng could not help but think of this, and she could not help but frown. Or for some reason, that scoundrel obtained the Saint King's secret realm, and obtained the great recognition of the era of Wendao? The more she thought about it, the more shocked she was. That scoundrel was really unimaginable. Therefore, when she turned back again, she found that the scoundrel actually ignored her, and had already left. She could not help but feel hatred and anger in her heart. After that, she chased after him and fell behind Chu Yang, not too far nor too close. When Chu Yang sensed Shi Danfeng's presence, he just smiled and felt a little proud. He seemed to have won. The Saint Monarch mystery realm was extremely vast, and the white fog seemed to be endless. In the process of flying forward, there were no more obstacles, nor were there any tests at all. Chu Yang was a little surprised, but Shi Danfeng was shocked again. According to what she knew, there would be many checkpoints and tests along the way. However, none of these appeared. "Wife, my face is big, right?" Chu Yang's voice came from the front. Other than disdain, Shi Danfeng didn't say anything, because she had to admit that this was really a kind of great ability. The two of them continued to fly forward. Chu Yang never lost his sense of direction. There seemed to be something guiding him, and he followed this feeling and continued to fly forward. He was as fast as lightning. He was not suppressed by the Saint King's secret realm, and even had the help of the Saint King's secret realm, so his speed was extremely fast. No one who entered the Saint King's secret realm could achieve this kind of speed. They could only be envious. After a while, the heaven and earth brightened up. Many soft rays of light shone from the front. They penetrated the white fog and fell on Chu Yang's body. Looking ahead, it seemed as if there was a sun rising from the east, and the soft rays of light were coming from there. Chapter 2385. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, move no evil. Chu Yang and Shi Danfeng could vaguely feel that there was an inexplicable rule in that world that blocked out sight and hearing. The core of the sage monarch's secret realm should be there. Hopefully we can obtain that amazing method to control people's hearts. Swoosh! Chu Yang's speed suddenly increased. The fog in front of him completely disappeared, and there was an incomparably vast plain in front of him. The plain was like a mirror. There was absolutely no protrusion, and there was no depression either. Swoosh! 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 Just as he was about to reach the star-like world, 3 figures suddenly rushed out from the infinite light there. They broke through the air, and their faces were sullen and filled with murderous intent. Get lost, this is not a place you should be. If you dare to come closer, we'll kill you without mercy. Chu Yang couldn't help but stop and look at the 3 of them. The 3 of them were neither fat nor thin. Their figures were moderate and slender, and their facial features were exquisite. Their skin was fair, and they could be said to be handsome and elegant. 2 of them were wearing white scholarly robes, and the other was wearing a green robe. They were all about 24 or 25 years old. The young man in green had a green thumb ring on his thumb. As for the other 2, one had a square face and looked more upright. The other's body emitted a spiritual light. At first glance, one could tell that he was very intelligent. At first, Chu Yang was a little surprised and thought, could these 3 be the owners of the sage monarch's secret realm? But when he found that the 3 of them were all suppressed by the sage monarch's secret realm, he knew that he was wrong. He immediately thought of the 3 ultimate. The 3 ultimates of the Sage Monarch Academy had already entered the Sage Monarch's secret realm 5 years ago. There had been no news of them for 5 years. Now it seemed that they were not dead. They were just unwilling to give up the good fortune in the Sage Monarch's secret realm, so they had not left. The 3 of them had stayed in the Saint King's secret territory for 5 years and had not come out empty-handed. Although the Saint King's secret territory still suppressed them, it was almost negligible. At the very least, their martial arts cultivation was no longer affected. 9th Order Saint Realm cultivation. The 3 of them were all 9th Order Saints. Shua! Shi Danfeng suddenly sped up from behind. In the midst of her fragrant wind, she had already landed on the right side of Chu Yang, but the distance between them was a little far. Xiao Xiang is a talented girl. When Sanju and the other 2 saw Xiao Xiang, their eyes couldn't help but flash with joy. Then, their hearts swayed and they couldn't help but gulp. Shi Danfeng frowned. How could she not understand this man's behavior? His gaze was as if he wanted to eat her up. She was dissatisfied, but Chu Yang was even more dissatisfied. Shua! His figure moved, and he had already blocked her behind him, blocking the gazes of Sanju and the others, not allowing them to act recklessly. Such a figure caused Shi Danfeng to have a strange feeling in her heart. In the past, she would often encounter such unreasonable gazes, but she could only face and deal with them herself. But now there was a person standing in front of her. The 3 of you, we all have a love for beauty. I understand that a gentleman would love a fair and graceful woman, but, Chu Yang sneered, do you understand the most basic respect? If you don't, I don't mind teaching you. Shi Danfeng's heart trembled. She had never thought that Chu Yang would be so domineering and strong, but he was only in the Nirvana realm. Everyone below the sage realm was an ant. Chu Yang, who was not a sage, could be fearless because he wanted to protect her. This caused ripples in her heart, and a strange feeling spread in her heart. Unfortunately, she had misunderstood. At least in one aspect, she was wrong. Chu Yang was not afraid of a sage. Chapter 2386. Also, let me tell you something else. Chu Yang pointed at Shi Danfeng and said casually, "She's my wife. You didn't know about it before, so you're innocent. If you still dare to be so impudent after knowing, then don't blame me for being impudent to you." Crack, crack. He clenched his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. His meaning was self-evident. How dare an ant be impudent in front of me? You're courting death. You don't know what's good for you. I think you're tired of living. The three absolutes were enraged. In front of Xiaoxiang lady, any male who was more impressive than them was unforgivable, let alone an ant who was not even a saint. That was their first reaction. Their second reaction was, "What, you're Xiaoxiang ladies?" They were unwilling to say the word husband. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. Why would Xiaoxiang lady like trash like you? Ant, you're not worthy. They were extremely angry. Their eyes were like fire as they stared coldly at Chu Yang. It was as if they could burn Chu Yang into ashes in an instant. His reaction was very intense. He couldn't accept it at all. A strong murderous aura had already swept out. Shi Danfeng's complexion changed. She was so shocked that she almost couldn't help but leap forward to protect Chu Yang. However, her reservedness and shyness prevented her from doing so. Although she did not do so, she was extremely alert at this moment. She was ready to attack at any time. If she was killed in the Sage King's secret realm, who would know? So what if they knew? Waha! Chu Yang suddenly laughed with his hands on his waist. He was very proud. My wife has indeed brought chaos to the world, and I have indeed saved the world. As for your anger and disbelief, I can still understand. Bang! Shi Danfeng kicked him to the ground. Who brought chaos to the world? She was really angry. The three absolutes did not have time to refute or be angry. When they saw Shi Danfeng's action, they suddenly felt as if their precious treasure had been snatched away. Their eyes were about to turn red. They even felt that they had been greatly humiliated. They almost lost their minds in an instant and were extremely furious. Die, you bastard! Ant, you touched something you shouldn't have. You deserve to die. Even if I kill you 1,000,000 times, I won't be able to get rid of the hatred in my heart. The three of them were actually able to use the sage's word law in the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm. At that moment, the power of three rules descended, transforming into three mighty forces that were about to obliterate Chu Yang. However, when they landed on Chu Yang's body, nothing happened. Shi Danfeng, who was about to make a move, was stunned. Her heart was once again filled with shock. This rascal is actually so amazing in terms of martial arts. The three absolutes and the other two shuddered, and disbelief appeared in their eyes. To think that the saint's words were of no use against a mere ant. This subverted the laws of martial arts. At the same time, this was definitely not because the Saint Monarch Mystery Domain had protected Chu Yang, or because it had formed something that affected all of this. Shi Danfeng was very clear on this point, and so were Sanju and the other two. That was why they were so shocked. And those who could do this were definitely extraordinary. They were people who were hard to come by in 100 years. I'm very outstanding. At this moment, Shi Danfeng could only choose to believe Chu Yang's narcissistic words. And it seemed that the rascal's previous boasting was not without any basis. As for Sanju and the other two, besides being shocked, they also felt a great sense of danger. They could not help but tense up. Such a person definitely could not be underestimated. Otherwise, they would not even know how they died. Chapter 2387. Shi Danfeng also tensed up, afraid that something bad would happen to Chu Yang if she couldn't rescue him in time. At this moment, she did all these things unconsciously. Chu Yang noticed this and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The women in this world are really poisoned. Once they give their virginity to a man, they think that they are completely bound to that man. This had already gone deep into Shi Danfeng's subconscious, which was why she unconsciously did such things. At this point, Chu Yang could only praise himself for being wise and brave. He decisively made a responsible action and didn't use the concepts of his previous life. Of course, he was also confident that his previous actions were also an extremely important factor. After all, in a feudal society, other than submitting, women could also kill the man who took her virginity and then slit their own throats to die together. Therefore, he at least proved one thing: as Shi Danfeng's husband, he wasn't bad. Chu Yang knew a lot about Shi Danfeng's heart, so he naturally wouldn't expose her and embarrass her. She was his wife, and now was definitely not the time to tease her. The three of you, I can still understand your insults, your killing intent, and all kinds of reactions. Chu Yang laughed again. Who asked my wife to be not only as beautiful as a fairy, but also so outstanding? Shi Danfeng's face suddenly turned red. He actually said such shameful words in front of others. He was really shameless. You can't live anymore, but I still have to live. Shi Danfeng almost fainted from anger. Sanju and the other two didn't make a sound. They indeed didn't feel Chu Yang's anger or the corresponding killing intent. As they relaxed, they immediately thought, "We are saints, and he is just an ant. He is afraid of us." The three couldn't help but look at each other, as if communicating. It's not that the ant didn't want to kill them, but that the ant didn't have the ability. Contempt for Chu Yang once again grew in their hearts, but the three of them didn't dare to act rashly because of Shi Danfeng. Shi Danfeng's cultivation was at the Earth Sovereign Realm. What was especially shocking was that she wasn't suppressed by the Saint King Mystery Realm. In order to do this, they had spent almost 5 years. This bitch is not simple. It's impossible to bypass this bitch and kill that ant. Who knows, if we make a move and anger this bitch, we'll all be killed by her. The three of them transmitted telepathically. They even resented Shi Danfeng. The reason was naturally because she had chosen Chu Yang over them. Chu Yang was also assessing the battle prowess of the three people in front of him. Could he kill them? To be honest, it was a little difficult. All three of them were 9th level saints. If he could kill one of them, he would have a chance. Against all three of them, he had no chance at all. Therefore, he couldn't help but miss the days in the eastern wilderness and the east continent. At that time, he was so awe-inspiring. Killing people 2 realms above him was as easy as flipping his hand. Now, he really felt like he was going back to those days. The central state's strength was undeniable. The higher one's realm was, the greater the gap between their strength. This was something that had to be acknowledged. Winning was definitely not a problem. They had Shi Danfeng. Death was absolutely impossible. When he was in a life-and-death crisis, he was almost 100% sure that the rules of the Saint King Mystery Realm would definitely descend. On the other hand, it was probably impossible for him to kill the 3 people in front of him, because the rules of the Saint King Mystery Realm would also descend. The way of Confucianism was particular about propriety, righteousness, benevolence, wisdom, and so on. Killing people for no reason would definitely not be recognized by the way of Confucianism. He had to take these into consideration. Otherwise, he would be judged as unbenevolent by the rules of the Saint King Mystery Realm. If that were the case, it would probably be very difficult to obtain the inheritance of the Saint King Mystery Realm. Chapter 2388. You three, do you want to fight? Chu Yang broke the silence and said with a smile, "If you want to fight, then please. Self-defense, there shouldn't be a problem, right? When Chu Yang was thinking about this, the three absolutes saw his smile and suddenly felt that the suppression of the sage monarch mystery realm had suddenly increased. They were shocked. This bastard is luring us to fight so that the sage monarch mystery realm won't accept us. The way to solve a conflict is not to fight to the death. We almost fell for this bastard's trick. The three of them were almost sweating as they communicated mentally. The reason why the suppression of the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm had suddenly increased was because they had evil thoughts in their hearts. They were very clear about this. After 5 years in the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm, the three of them had thoroughly explored this place. The good and evil in one's heart was the key. The Sage Monarch Mystery Realm's control of one's heart was extremely shocking, far beyond their imagination. Junior brother, you must be joking. I was just joking just now. The young man in green fiddled with the ring on his thumb and said with a smile, however, I'm really envious that junior brother has such a good partner like Miss Xiao Xiang. That's right. I'm only envious of mandarin ducks and not immortals. Junior brother, you're really envious. Who says so? The three of them retracted their claws and fangs and became hypocritical. Chu Yang also responded in the same way. He even took the opportunity to communicate with his master, Dan Feng. He asked, Wife, can you tell me more about these three things? After all, they have learned some of this genius, shamelessness, and hypocrisy. Sure, Dan Feng responded. According to her, the young man in green was called Wu Feng. He was very experienced in the path of painting. In the Sage Monarch College, he was known as the painting master. Of course, this was only limited to the Sage Monarch College. The square-faced one who looked very upright was called Zhao Lang, who was known as the CI master. The last one who looked very talented was Zhang Jian, who was known as the poetry master. Junior brother Song, to be honest, I'm very uncomfortable in my heart. I'm very unwilling and even angry to the extreme. Zhang Jian cupped his fists and said directly, I don't know how junior brother Song can get the favor of Xiaoxiang. I would like to ask, do you dare to enlighten me? He directly issued a challenge, and everything he said was from the bottom of his heart. Because this was the Saint King Mystery Realm, it would not be good to be hypocritical. In the Sage Monarch Mystery Domain, Zhang Jian, Zhao Lang, and Wu Feng were not willing to give up on the terrifying mind control technique. Therefore, they stayed in the Sage Monarch Mystery Domain for 5 years. The arrival of Chu Yang and Shi Danfeng posed a great threat to the three of them. If not for Shi Danfeng, the three of them would have already killed Chu Yang. Chu Yang was well aware of all this. He smiled and said, Senior Zhang, how do you want to compete? Junior brother Song, you should know that I'm good at poetry, right? Let's compete in poetry. Zhang Jian also smiled and said, If junior brother Song can defeat me in the Tao of poetry, I won't have any complaints in the future. Shameless. Shi Danfeng was furious when she heard this. Her beautiful eyes also turned cold. Zhang Jian was known as the poetry master. This was simply bullying Chu Yang. Although she did not say anything, her meaning was clear. She also did not expect that she would become the reason for Chu Yang to be attacked. Chu Yang still smiled and said, Senior Zhang, have you thought about it carefully? What? Zhang Jian sneered. Junior brother Song, are you afraid? I'm a little afraid. Chu Yang looked at him with disdain. Senior Zhang, you're known as the poetry master. If you compete with me, I'm afraid that I'll use you to improve my reputation. Chapter 2389. You're right. Chu Yang rubbed his chin and pondered for a while before he said, Senior Zhang, you're right. I have to agree with you. How can I be an ordinary person? Ah. He laughed wildly. His complacent and arrogant appearance made Shi Danfeng's anger surge. She wished she could beat him up. Can't you tell the difference between good and bad? You don't know what you're talking about just because he flatters you a little. Zhang Jian was angry and disdainful. He said, "So, you agree, junior brother?" "Yes, of course I agree." Chu Yang laughed and said, "It's time for me, the great genius, to show my talent." He paused and said to Zhang Jian with a smile, "Senior Zhang, you have to think carefully. I'm not an ordinary person." He said to Zhao Lang and Wu Fang, "Seniors, you have to be my witness. I've already reminded Senior Zhang. Don't you think so?" He was too arrogant. Not only Zhang Jian, but Zhao Lang and Wu Fang were also furious. "I can testify for junior brother. Junior brother has indeed reminded brother Zhang. I can explain for junior brother. Junior brother, you can do whatever you want and teach brother Zhang a lesson." As soon as they finished speaking, Zhang Jian said angrily, "Junior brother, do you still have to hesitate?" No, I don't." Chu Yang waved his hand and said, "Senior Zhang, how are we going to compete? 1 poem or 3 poems? Why do you have to go through so much trouble?" Zhang Jian waved his sleeve and said, "Junior brother, let's just summon the Book of Songs and compete directly. What do you think?" "No." Before Chu Yang could say anything, Shi Danfeng screamed and tried to stop him. Then, she stared coldly at Zhang Jian and said, "Zhang Jian, do you really want to bully me like this?" She was truly enraged. In a competition of poetry, there was a competition like this. Everyone would summon the Book of Songs, Book of Ci, or Book of Painting, and have a direct collision to determine the victor. This was like a battle of life and death on the martial path. The difference was that the one who died was not a person, but a poem, the Book of Songs, or even the literary Tao. This was because once he lost, Chu Yang might not be able to compose another poem in the future, let alone summon the Book of Songs. It might even affect his literary Tao and be completely rejected by it. The consequences were extremely severe. For example, the Book of Songs. It was like when Tao had given Chu Yang a new life. Once he lost, the Book of Songs would completely shatter. It was like a person dying, unable to be restored. There was no way to save it, and it was even more like a person dying, when Tao would erase it from his household register. "Xiao Xiang is a talented girl." Zhang Jian sneered, "You've gone too far. Junior brother Song is very good at poetry. He even specially reminded me to be careful of not being able to defeat him. How can you say that he's bullying me? Who could he blame for his arrogance and ignorance? Could he blame me? What a joke." "That's right." Zhao Lang immediately said, "Xiao Xiang is a talented girl. Didn't you see what junior brother Song did just now? If you think you're no match for him, junior brother Song, you should just admit defeat." Wu Fang was even more direct. He said to Xiao Xiang, "Junior brother Song is arrogant and conceited. Xiao Xiang is a talented girl, yet you're blaming us?" Chu Yang could not help but sneer in his heart. No man would be able to tolerate someone mocking his wife in front of him. He would definitely explode in anger, let alone someone as arrogant as him. Wu Fang was treating him like a fool. But who was the fool? Who was bullying who? In terms of poetry, as a plagiarist, Chu Yang had countless poems from his previous life. Any one of them would be enough to crush all of you. Of course he was angry. He rolled up his sleeves and pointed at Wu Fang's nose, scolding, "You dog, is my wife someone you can lecture and mock? Just you wait. I'll let you see if this genius is arrogant and conceited." Chapter 2390. Arrogant and conceited, thinking that no one was as smart as him, that no one was better than him, and that no one could surpass him. Chu Yang. At least, this was Chu Yang in the eyes of Zhang Jian, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang. In their eyes, Chu Yang must be in such a state of ignorance at this moment. Was Chu Yang stupid? Of course not. Not only was Chu Yang not stupid, but he was also very smart. It was a pity that he was so complacent that he had forgotten that there was always someone better than him. There were definitely many people like Chu Yang. In other words, they could be seen everywhere in the world. Arrogance and conceit were so easy to make mistakes. Who could escape from such mistakes when they were young? Zhang Juyan and the other two could not. They had been like this when they were young, so they were very clear about this. They knew even more clearly that such a person would never come to his senses before he suffered a blow. Junior brother Song, it's not a good thing that you're too arrogant. Today I'll wake you up. I'm afraid you'll have to thank me in the future. Zhang Juyan did not have any scruples in his contempt. He was not afraid that Chu Yang would come to his senses. Because he had also experienced such a stage, he understood too well and was too relaxed. His heart was full of ridicule. That's right. Junior brother Song really needs to wake up. If he continues to be so stubborn, he'll really be hopeless. Isn't that right? We've put in a lot of effort. If we don't use strong medicine, Junior brother Song will definitely not come to his senses. There are too many people like him. Sigh. Zhao Lang's tone was also full of ridicule and mockery. Wu Fang could not help but sigh. The two of them had smiles on their faces. They were relaxed and happy. In the future, they really hoped to meet an idiot like Chu Yang. The three of them were unscrupulous in front of Chu Yang. He could not help but think of a poem. It's hard to become a man without poverty. Heaven is true without a blow. Since ancient times, heroes have come out of purgatory. Riches and honor have come to the mortal world. Drunk and dreamy, who will succeed? Toma's spear will determine the universe. Leading the army for thousands of miles, the mountains and rivers will be passed down to future generations. Indeed, if he was at this stage of arrogance and complacency, Zhang Juyan and the other two would not have any scruples. Because no matter what they said, he, being arrogant and complacent, would definitely not listen to a word they said. He would only be angry. While he was speechless, he couldn't help but reflect and sigh in his heart, why can't I even listen to the words and suggestions of others? This was a problem. Not only was this problem when he was young. Chu Yang didn't have the time to explore the essence of this matter. He directly retorted angrily, "Seniors, do you know what it means to be slapped in the face? If you don't have the face to see anyone later, don't say that I didn't give you any face. Junior brother Song, if this goes on, you'll It Fong, it was easy to deal. Fong was Fong, 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 Fong. Chu Chu was Fong, Fong was they Fong, Fong. He, Fong, he, one step Fong, one wrong would never. Zhao Lang and Wu Fang laughed even more happily and mockingly. Shi Danfeng was anxious, but before she could say anything, Zhang Juyan smiled and said, Xiaoxiang, we're doing this for the good of junior brother Song. Otherwise, if he can't come to his senses, it'll be worse. What do you think? What he said was the truth. Therefore, Shi Danfeng didn't say anything. Perhaps he had paid a very heavy price today. But, the price he would have to pay in the future would be even greater if he continued like this. In fact, he might even have to pay with his life. This woman is really rational. No wonder she could accept her fate so quickly after having sex with me. Chapter 2391. Cut the crap. Are you going to compete or not? Or should I say, you don't dare? Chu Yang was very impulsive, and made the reaction that Zhang Juyan and the others had expected. The three of them couldn't help but sneer even more. Talented Lady Xiaoxiang, do you see that? Junior brother Song really needs this beating. Zhang Juyan and the others thought, I'm doing you a favor by harming you. You've gained an advantage, yet you're still pretending to be obedient, especially to Shi Danfeng. Chu Yang couldn't help but feel angry. Putting aside that he was stupid, he actually dared to bully Shi Danfeng, making her feel uncomfortable and even mocking her for being blind. This was absolutely intolerable. Are you done with your nonsense? When Chu Yang saw Shi Danfeng's extremely furious and incomparably conflicted expression, he was even more unable to hold back his anger. How could he let her be bullied to such an extent? Humph! Zhang Jiyan couldn't help but sneer in the face of Chu Yang's continuous roars. "I'll satisfy you, pup." As soon as he finished speaking, the void above his head rippled like water with a soft sound, as if a small stone had been thrown into the calm surface of the water. Then, a book appeared and floated above his head. Hong Long Long. In the Saint King Mystery Realm, literary arts had received a great boost. When this book appeared, there was immediately a surging flow of air that swept out in all directions. This book also seemed even more real. It was filled with an ancient aura, and the two words "Book of Songs" were written in a flamboyant style. It looked like a complete material object, but it was still a little illusory. That kind of illusory feeling was like the illusory world described in the book, and one couldn't help but think and investigate it. When Zhang Jiyan communicated with the Book of Songs that appeared wasn't completely like a real book. It was still a little bit off, but it was already very extraordinary and astonishing. No wonder it could be called the absolute poem. "Is this all you've got?" In the midst of Chu Yang's angry words, his Book of Songs also appeared. The difference was that it was silent. It appeared in an instant and was completed in an instant. Moreover, his Book of Songs was no different from a real book. This caused Zhang Jiyan's group of 3 to be unable to help but be shocked, and they said to themselves, "No wonder this ant dares to be so arrogant. He truly possesses shocking natural talent in the Tao of poetry." Shi Danfeng was also incomparably astonished. Chu Yang's Book of Songs had appeared too quickly. It was as if he had summoned it and dismissed it with a wave of his hand. "Junior brother, you're really capable, but that doesn't mean you'll win." Zhang Jiyan was still mocking him. "Senior, let me remind you," Chu Yang retorted, "don't speak too soon. Otherwise, you won't have the face to leave the stage, let alone live." "Is that so?" Rumble. Zhang Jiyan's Book of Songs seemed to be an ancient book, but when it moved, it was as if the stars were moving. The void rumbled, as if it was unable to bear its weight and was about to collapse. The airflow was turbulent, and the entire world changed color at this moment. The scene was grand and shocking to the extreme, so much so that Shi Danfeng was extremely anxious even before the two sides came into contact. She almost couldn't help but take action to stop all of this. Chu Yang's Book of Songs was just like a piece of paper, floating there. When Zhang Jiyan's Book of Songs rushed over, it suddenly shook violently. Immediately, brush, ink, paper, and inkstone appeared on it. The 4 treasures of the study were here. The eastern city gradually feels that the scenery is good, wrinkling the ripples to welcome the guest. Outside the smoke of the green poplar, the dawn is cold, the red apricot branches are lively with spring. Growing in life, hating the lack of pleasure, willing to love the daughter with a light smile. Holding wine to persuade the setting sun for the ruler, and leaving the evening glow among the flowers. A poem about spring was recited from Zhang Jiyan's Book of Songs. Moreover, after this poem, one after another appeared as if there was no end to it. Chapter 2392. Spring and autumn, winter and summer, mountains and rivers, fields, rain and snow, plum blossoms, lotus flowers, chrysanthemums, the moon, the lantern festival, the mid-autumn festival, the spring festival, and so on. Poems related to these were written one after another. Along with these, in Zhang Jiyan's Book of Songs, scenes of the 4 seasons, mountains and rivers, wind, flowers, snow, and the moon, as well as festive scenes appeared one by one. It was as if a picture scroll of the world was opened, and all things seemed to appear in it. The ink, paper, and inkstone that appeared in Chu Yang's Book of Songs were like 4 defenseless people facing an army armed to the teeth in front of them. Zhang Jiyan's poems were more than Chu Yang's, much, much more. The poems here did not refer to the poems that were included in the Book of Songs, but the poems that Zhang Jiyan had written before. He was much more than Chu Yang. Spring, summer, autumn, winter, landscape, and so on were all involved. In terms of quantity, he completely crushed Chu Yang. After Chu Yang had activated the Book of Songs, he had only written a few poems. He did not want to expose a poem like Spring Dawn, because once it was released, his identity would be exposed directly. In a one-sided situation, Chu Yang would definitely lose. Ha ha! Zhang Jiyan laughed directly. Junior Song, although you are talented, I can make up for it with hard work, don't you think so? Once the Book of Songs is broken, I'm afraid Junior Song can't make up for it with hard work. It's really a pity for such a talent. My heart hurts so much. Zhao Lang also laughed continuously. Wu Fang did not stop. Instead, he became sharper and more sarcastic. He directly ridiculed, Junior Song, are you going to slap our faces like this? Ha! Chu Yang did not say anything. He quickly recited 2 poems. Jasper is made into the height of a tree, thousands of green silk ribbons hang down. I wonder who cut the thin leaves, the spring breeze in February is like scissors. Inglian clogs the moss, the small button door does not open for a long time. The garden full of spring cannot be shut, a branch of red apricot leaves the wall. These 2 poems were extremely famous in his previous life. They were familiar and could be found in the textbooks of students. Bang bang bang! Brush, ink, paper, and inkstone, the 4 treasures of the study instantly exploded, unable to form an effective barrier. Zhang Jiyan's Book of Songs crashed over like a star. Chu Yang's Book of Songs exploded like an egg and immediately turned into dust. It turned into a chaotic flow that scattered in all directions and stirred up an enormous vortex. Haha, Junior Brother Song, you're too late. Although the 2 poems you've created are extraordinary, are they useful? It was not without reason that Zhang Jiyan was known as the poetry master. At first glance, the 2 poems that Chu Yang came up with were not extraordinary, but he immediately noticed how amazing these 2 poems were. Because of that, Zhang Jiyan was slightly shocked. However, he was even more pleased and his mood became even better. Destroying something that was worth thousands of gold or even a city, wouldn't that be a very satisfying thing? Ha! Zhao Lang and Wu Fang laughed so hard that tears were about to flow out. That Song Deming was really stupid. His talent was obviously much better than Zhang Jiyan's. If he was not so arrogant and accumulated more experience, Zhang Jiyan would not be worth mentioning. He could crush him with a raise of his hand. Unfortunately, he was too ignorant. He destroyed his own future and brought about his own destruction. Zhang Jiyan, Zhao Lang, Wu Fang. At the moment when Chu Yang's Book of Songs exploded, Shi Danfeng's heart seemed to explode. She lamented Chu Yang and heard the ridicule of the 3 people. Anger burned in her heart. Her killing intent surged out like a dam and drowned the 3 people in an instant. Do you want to die? She called out their names one by one. Her voice was like the snowstorm in winter. Her expression was as sharp as a knife. She was like a female Rakshasa who was about to explode and kill people, causing rivers of blood to flow. Hadesh, the laughter of Zhang Jiyan and the other 2 stopped abruptly like ducks being strangled by their necks. Did I lose? You're celebrating too early. Chapter 2393. Have I lost? It's too early for you to be happy. This was naturally Chu Yang's voice. He continued in an extremely languid tone, Seniors, don't be too proud just yet. Allow me to take my time. Zhang Jiyan and the other 2 looked at Chu Yang with a strange look in their eyes. The result couldn't be more obvious. But this ant still doesn't admit defeat? They really couldn't understand. Shi Danfeng was also very puzzled. The Book of Songs was like a mortal. Once it exploded, it would be like a mortal dying. How could it be restored? This was completely impossible. While she was still puzzled, she was already in Chu Yang's arms. She heard his gentle words, I'm sorry for making you be bullied and worried. This kind of thing won't happen again in the future. However, then Chu Yang suddenly said, I say, wife, aren't you too cruel? Even if I'm useless, can you not hand me over to the enemy? Can you use your method to make your husband succeed? Shi Danfeng was a little confused. She didn't see how Chu Yang had won, or how he had turned defeat into victory. However, this scoundrel acted as if he had already won. Although this was very sweet and moved her, it also made her even more embarrassed and angry. Because this scoundrel didn't have anything good to say. Wife, you have to know that behind a successful man, there will always be a few women. This sentence caused Shi Danfeng's beautiful eyes to immediately become fierce. I'm only speaking the truth. Chu Yang shrugged, looking very helpless and unable to do anything to her. She was so angry that she sent Chu Yang flying with a kick. Song Deming, your book of songs has already been destroyed, yet you still refuse to admit defeat. Are you trying to act shamelessly? Zhang Zhiyan was burning with anger. Chu Yang actually flirted with the talented girl Xiaoxiang in front of the three of them, completely ignoring the three of them. Song Deming, you're really a shameless villain. Ha ha! Wu Fang was originally burning with rage, but he burst out laughing. Song Deming, you're really stupid. This is the Saint Monarch Mystery Realm, and you refuse to admit defeat. There's no integrity to speak of. I guarantee you'll be extremely satisfied later. Hearing this, Zhang Jian's eyes lit up. That's right, Song Deming, you're finished. The Saint Monarch Mystery Realm can't tolerate someone like you, haha. Seniors, don't be so arrogant. I've said that I'll come slowly. Chu Yang was not in a hurry. He stood up from the ground and patted the dust off his body. He smiled and said, haste makes waste. 3 seniors, I will definitely satisfy you. Stubborn as a dead duck, truly ignorant. The 3 of them sneered endlessly. Chu Yang finally chuckled and used his literary cultivation. Then, he spread out his hands and said, 3 seniors, take a look at this. His magic power surged, and ripples spread out in the void with a pop sound. An antique ancient book jumped into Chu Yang's palm like a fairy. It exuded a holy and gentle light, and even Chu Yang himself appeared very sacred. The Book of Songs. After the Book of Songs was destroyed, it could actually be restored. Zhang Jiyan and the other 2 stared at Chu Yang's palm without blinking. Unconsciously, large beads of sweat rolled down from their foreheads. This scoundrel! Shi Danfeng was so shocked that she bit her tongue to the extreme. The pain woke her up, and then she felt a hand pulling her into someone's arms. His head intimately pressed against her, and his chin rested on her shoulder. Jasper makeup as tall as a tree. Chapter 2394. First grade poem, a proper first grade poem. In the blink of an eye, 2 extremely shocking things happened one after another. Not only was the Book of Songs restored in an instant, but there was also someone who could compose 2 first-grade poems in an instant. It was unbelievable. How did he do it? Was he still human? Seniors, why aren't you laughing? Is there something wrong with you? Chu Yang's indifferent voice drilled into the ears of Zhang Jiyan and the other 2. The 3 of them were furious but also abnormally ashamed. Blood rushed to their faces and directly turned them red. What was even more outrageous was that Song Deming had once again completely ignored them. He was asking for a reward and encouragement from the talented girl. Dear, I did a good job, right? Don't you want to give me a little reward? Song Deming, did you win? Facing Zhang Jiyan's anger, Chu Yang smiled and stretched out his hand. Senior, please continue to struggle. Don't disturb me and my wife whispering sweet nothings to each other. Otherwise, you will be struck by lightning. Zhang Jiyan was so angry that he was trembling. He gritted his teeth and suddenly roared again, Go! His book of songs moved once more, and it was immediately like a magnificent army charging forward. It rumbled as it swept away everything before it, and it once again charged towards Chu Yang's Book of Songs with the momentum of sweeping away everything before it. Chu Yang did not even look at it. When he was kicked away by Shi Danfeng in anger and shame, his Book of Songs suddenly trembled. Suddenly, a poem rushed out and transformed into a large hand. It fiercely grabbed Zhang Juyan's Book of Songs and then shook it. In an instant, the Book of Songs silently disintegrated. Pieces of pages fluttered in the air like snowflakes. Finally, everything gathered together and transformed into a trembling human figure. It knelt in front of Chu Yang's Book of Songs. Chu Yang's Book of Songs was like an immortal. It could touch stone and turn it into gold. It was immortal and immortal. Its magic power was boundless. Zhang Juyan's Book of Songs was like an emperor that ruled over millions of territories. When he was angry, rivers of blood would flow and millions of corpses would fall. The comparison between the two was more or less like this. Chu Yang's Book of Songs was superior. No matter how powerful Zhang Juyan's Book of Songs was, it was of no use. It could not cross the gap between immortals and mortals, and the power of the secular world was not worth mentioning in the eyes of immortals. Zhang Juyan was completely dumbfounded. It was as if his soul had been taken away. It was as if he had become a zombie. Zhao Lang and Wu Fang were so shocked that they fell to the ground. They were dumbstruck as they watched all this. Shi Danfeng's beautiful face also turned pale. She had never seen such an outrageous thing in her life. But how could she know that Chu Yang already had the cultivation of the literary path? Even if the Book of Songs was destroyed, the magical power transformed from literary energy could be condensed again at any time. Seniors, did I lose? At this time, Chu Yang looked at Zhang Juyan and the other two and laughed coldly. The three of them did not answer. He continued to mock. 3 seniors, does this count as me slapping your faces? You, Zhao Lang and Wu Fang were in a much better state than Zhang Juyan. The two of them suddenly heard such bitter mockery. Their faces turned red and boiling hot. They glared at him angrily. Ah! Suddenly, Zhang Juyan screamed. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. His whole body trembled. Then, he felt as if someone had extracted his bone marrow. He collapsed to the ground like a pile of mud. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His body kept spasming. Zhang Juyan's Wendao luck and everything else had been extracted. In the future, he would become a dead person on the Wendao household register. The household register would also be completely removed. From then on, he would have no fate with the Wendao. Chapter 2395. Senior, I've reminded you that I'm very powerful, haven't I? Chu Yang smiled and asked with a grin, Senior, am I powerful? Zhang Juyan did not have the support of his martial arts cultivation. After his Wendao was deprived and he suffered a backlash, he was seriously injured. After being humiliated like this, he tilted his head and actually fainted. TSK. Who are you showing off in front of? Who are you bullying? Chu Yang was full of disdain. He kicked Zhang Juyan and looked at Zhao Lang and Wu Fang with a smile, saying, Seniors, how do you feel now? Can you express your feelings of being slapped in the face? Not to mention Zhao Lang and Wu Fang, even Shi Danfeng could not bear to watch and listen. In terms of bullying, Zhang Juyan and the other two added up were not as good as Chu Yang's finger. This rascal was bullying people and even wanted to bully people to death. She could only describe it in this way, too cruel. Therefore, she already did not know how Zhao Lang and Wu Fang felt at the moment. Therefore, she seemed to understand why Chu Yang, the rascal, asked them how they felt. Junior, do you dare to compete with me in the classic of CI with you? After a burst of shame and anger, Zhao Lang actually said something that surprised Chu Yang and made him feel a little incredulous. He looked at Zhao Lang's gloomy expression and could not help but ask directly, Senior, are you stupid? Zhao Leng felt as if he had been hit by a heavy blow. He suddenly had the heart to tear Chu Yang apart, but he just said, "I am stupid, but do you dare to accept the challenge?" Chu Yang glanced at Zhao Leng from head to toe with a strange look in his eyes. He really couldn't understand what was going on. He muttered in his heart, "What is this thing relying on? Junior, where is your arrogance just now? Don't you dare now?" Zhao Leng tried his best to provoke him. "Ha ha!" Chu Yang finally chuckled. He looked at Zhao Leng with a smile and said, "I'll satisfy you and let you end up like Senior Zhang. As long as you have the ability." Zhao Leng gritted his teeth. "Then, Senior, please." The two of them began to compete. The process of the competition was almost the same as before. The only difference was that the Book of Songs had become the Book of Ci. The moment their Ci Sutra collided, Zhao Leng's Ci Sutra burst forth with 3 first-rank Ci Sutra, causing his Ci Sutra to flourish to the extreme in an instant. It directly crushed and broke Chu Yang's Ci Sutra. At that moment, Chu Yang somewhat understood. Zhao Leng was relying on the 3 first-grade poems. Zhao Leng's talent in literary arts was even more shocking than Zhang Juyan's. From what Chu Yang knew, it was very difficult for Central State to produce a first-grade poem or a first-grade poem. This was probably an illusion, because many people used it as a trump card, such as Zhao Leng. Not good. When Chu Yang's Ci Sutra recovered again, Zhao Leng attacked fiercely, but he could no longer do anything to Chu Yang's Ci Sutra. The same situation happened to Zhang Juyan. He was immediately frightened, but it was too late. Defeat, a crushing defeat without any suspense. His literary arts luck and many other aspects of literary arts were all directly extracted and given to Chu Yang like Zhang Juyan. He convulsed on the ground, and his martial arts cultivation was completely suppressed. He was like a chicken or duck waiting to be eaten. This is the so-called 3 unique of the Holy King Academy. That's all there is to it. Chu Yang was extremely disdainful. He said to Wu Fang directly, "If you are the so-called 3 unique, then I am the unique of the unique. What do you think?" "What the hell are you talking about? You can't slap my face like this." Wu Fang's face was red. He gritted his teeth and said, "I want to challenge you to a painting Dao. Since you are so arrogant, do you dare to compete with me in painting Dao? I've slapped your faces. Is it not enough? Do you want to make up for it?" Chu Yang sneered. At this moment, he really didn't understand. Were Zhao Leng and Wu Fang both stupid? They knew that he was amazing in literary arts, but they still came to humiliate themselves. Chapter 2396. As for Zhao Leng and Wu Fang's actions, they knew they were no match for him, yet they still came forward to seek death. After a moment of confusion, Chu Yang somewhat understood. Greed arose in Zhao Leng's heart. In such a competition of literary Dao, once he lost, not only would he lose the Book of Songs, but also Zhang Juyan's Book of Ci, Book of Paintings, and so on would all be taken away. Everything in literary Dao would cease to exist. Moreover, all his literary Dao luck would be added to Chu Yang. In this way, Chu Yang's talent would increase, and it would be easier for him to compose poems. Zhao Leng was shocked by Chu Yang's talent in poetry. He wanted to plunder Chu Yang's talent and make it his own. Of course, this was not enough. Although Zhao Leng, Zhang Juyan, and Wu Fang had become the 3 masters, Zhao Leng probably looked down on Zhang Juyan. To be precise, Zhao Leng probably looked down on Zhang Juyan. It had been a long time since scholars looked down on each other. In fact, poetry was not divided into families. Zhang Juyan actually held the title of Master of Poetry. Zhao Leng's talent was even better, but he could only fall behind Zhang Juyan. How could he be convinced? Moreover, Zhao Leng's talent was indeed amazing. He had actually come up with 3 first-grade poems. Naturally, he would be arrogant and look down on Zhang Juyan. Therefore, even if Zhang Jiyan was not Chu Yang's match, it did not mean that he was not either. In Chu Yang's view, Zhao Leng actually had another mentality. Gambling mentality. Zhao Leng actually did not care much about literary Dao. He could accept losing it, so he boldly took a big gamble. This was especially true when he was confident in himself. However, he did not expect that Chu Yang already had the cultivation of literary Dao. He could use the power of literary Dao to display the same power as martial Dao. As for Wu Fang, it was even simpler. Once Zhang Jiyan and Zhao Leng fell, Wu Fang was alone. How could he face Chu Yang and Shi Danfeng? How could he not pay the price for mocking and ridiculing Chu Yang? The smallest price he had to pay was the same as Zhang Jiyan and Zhao Leng. The biggest price he had to pay was that he would be directly killed by Chu Yang. Therefore, his choice was very simple. There was another reason for Wu Fang's decision. This was the Sage Monarch's secret territory. If Chu Yang wanted to obtain the inheritance in the Sage Monarch's secret territory, he could not simply kill people. After Chu Yang figured this out, everything became simple. He agreed to Wu Fang's challenge. When the two of them used the painting classic, Wu Fang was defeated and ended up like Zhang Jiyan and Zhao Leng. After Wu Fang also fell, everything was completely over. However, Chu Yang still couldn't help but sigh. There isn't a single idiot here. You're the only smart person in this world. Everyone else is an idiot. You're unprecedented. Are you satisfied now? When Shi Danfeng heard Chu Yang's sigh, she couldn't help but jab at him. In any case, she had been provoked by this rascal today. At the very least, no matter how proud she was, she had no choice but to admit that she was absolutely inferior to this scoundrel in terms of Wendao cultivation. Wife, I'm awesome. When Chu Yang heard Shi Danfeng's displeasure, he couldn't help but laugh. Then, he said, quickly praise me. Shameless. Shi Danfeng directly rolled her eyes. She was extremely charming, and Chu Yang followed her rolling eyes and fell to the ground. He said absent-mindedly, Wife, when you rolled your eyes you actually stole my soul and soul. You're really beautiful. She couldn't help but blush. She felt that even if her skin was as thick as a city wall, it would still be penetrated by this rascal. You have to compensate me. Shi Danfeng immediately rolled her eyes again. Wife, you're wrong. If you want your husband to be successful, rolling your eyes is far from enough. You also need to encourage, praise, worship, and so on. Quickly worship your husband and let me satisfy you. Rolling her eyes, still rolling her eyes. In a short period of time, Shi Danfeng didn't know how many times she had rolled her eyes. She also realized that this had become a habitual action. It was absolutely impossible for her to encourage and praise Chu Yang. Chapter 2397. Shi Danfeng wanted to kick him for being so blatant and shameless. However, that rascal's figure moved and disappeared into that dazzling light. She could only follow her husband's lead and follow him. After passing through this light, it was the star-like world. The secret of the Sage King Mystery Realm was there. There would definitely be a test to enter. This test surprised Chu Yang. A barrier like a wall. In the endless light there was a barrier blocking the way. This barrier was as smooth as a mirror, leaving no traces. Zhang Jiyan, Zhao Leng, and Wu Fang stayed here for 5 years, but they didn't leave any traces. The rolling Yangtze River flows east, washing away heroes. Right and wrong, success and failure vanish in a flash. The green hills are still there, and the sunset is still red. Chu Yang started to try and write a poem on it. White-haired fishermen and woodcutters on the river, accustomed to the autumn moon and spring breeze. A pot of turbid wine is a happy reunion. So many things in the past and present are just jokes. When the poem was completed, the mirror-like barrier rippled like a calm water surface, shining with an even more dazzling light. Then, it completely calmed down. Is the quantity not enough, or the quality not enough? Chu Yang thought and tried again. Leaving the door open, changing the fire 3 times, stepping into the world of mortals. Still a smile like the warmth of spring. Without waves in the true ancient well, there is a knot in the autumn cloud. Melancholy, the lonely sail sailed through the night, sending off the faint moon and faint clouds. There is no need to frown in front of me. Life is like a journey in reverse, I am also a traveler. It was almost the same result as the previous poem. It seems that a small path like poetry is not enough to pass such a test. He used many poems, but none of them work. So, he started to write many Confucian thoughts on it. In the end, 2 extremely dazzling words appeared on it. Sage King. Sage King, is it the inner sage outer sage king, or the outer sage inner sage king who will explain it to you? Chu Yang stroked his chin as he muttered to himself. Shi Danfeng, who was standing at the side, seemed to have been scared silly, or perhaps she had turned into a love-struck fool. Before this, Chu Yang had defeated Zhang Jiyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang, so she knew that Chu Yang's foundation in the Tao of literature was absolutely not bad. However, when she truly witnessed it, she still couldn't help but be greatly shocked. In such a short period of time, Chu Yang actually came up with close to 20 to 30 poems. Every one of them was extremely extraordinary, completely subverting Shi Danfeng's imagination. It could be said that no matter how talented the Central State was, it was impossible for them to compose so many poems in such a short period of time. Furthermore, every single one of them caused her eyes to light up. Is he even human? Shi Danfeng couldn't help but have such a thought. She suddenly had such a feeling. I'm a female toad, and Chu Yang is a male swan. Shangguan Lan. When she thought of such a person again, she really couldn't help but feel a little nervous and felt a great pressure. Then, she realized that her mentality was annoyed and she said to herself, what's so great about him? He just has the capital to be a scoundrel and shameless. It seems that there is only one sentence. When she heard Chu Yang talking to himself, Shi Danfeng didn't know why, but she secretly looked over. At this moment, Chu Yang had already written on it, establishing a heart for heaven and earth, establishing a life for the people, inheriting the lost knowledge for the past saints, establishing peace for all ages. When this sentence was imprinted in Shi Danfeng's beautiful eyes, there was a roar in her mind. She didn't know how to describe her feelings. In an instant, her gaze turned into what Chu Yang had expected, worship. She felt that such a sentence had completely written and encapsulated the highest pursuit and ultimate meaning of all literati. It had also completely clarified and confirmed the vague thoughts in her heart. Chapter 2398. Rumble. Heaven and earth establish the heart, establish life for the people, inherit the lost knowledge for the past sages, establish peace for all ages. The moment Chu Yang wrote such a sentence, the entire Saint King Academy shook violently. The sky shook and the earth changed. The students in the academy were extremely shocked. Immediately, they found that 3 people had been thrown out of the Saint King mystery realm. They recognized them as Zhang Jiyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang, the 3 ultimate of the Saint King Academy. Immediately, there was an uproar. They immediately understood that such a huge commotion must be because something had happened in the Saint King mystery realm. Zhou Kaichang, Yu Fuji, Lu Wu, Wang Qing, and Han Zheng, the 5 higher-ups of the Saint King Academy, were even more sensitive. At this time, they could even see the scene in the depths of the Saint King mystery realm. They saw Chu Yang, Shi Danfeng, and the sentence Chu Yang had written. Heaven and earth establish the heart, establish life for the people, inherit the lost knowledge for the past sages, establish peace for all ages. Every word in this sentence was extremely dazzling and almost impossible to look at. It was as if every word was a small sun, dazzling and incomparably holy. As soon as the words fell into the eyes of the 5 people, their minds rumbled like thunder. They trembled continuously, revealing an extremely shocked and excited expression. When the line of words disappeared and turned into a bright vortex that sucked Chu Yang in, the 5 people were shocked again. He did it! That little bastard had succeeded! In a short period of time, he had obtained the recognition of the relics left behind by the One Tao era. The 5 people were far more shocked than happy. In fact, they didn't even feel joy, only shock. How many years had the Saint King Academy been established? Very few people could enter the Saint King Mystery Realm. Those who could climb the mountain of books and pass the sea of knowledge were even rarer. However, there had never been a single person who had obtained the recognition of the Saint King Mystery Realm. Now, such a person had finally appeared. Moreover, he had used an extremely short period of time to do all this. He had done something that countless people couldn't do even after a long period of time. This little bastard is indeed a monster. The 5 of us didn't spare any effort to teach him a lesson in vain. Among the 5 of them, 5th Lu had always been the most frivolous. However, at this moment, he could not say anything witty. He was deeply shocked. Establishing the heart of life for the heavens and earth, pointing out a great Tao for the common people to follow, inheriting the knowledge that the saints of the past did not pass on, and establishing a foundation for eternal peace for future generations. At this moment, Zhuo Kaichang was completely absent-minded. The words that Chu Yang had written kept appearing in his mind. In the end, he couldn't help but say, "This bastard has already far surpassed us." Inner sage Yufuzi, who had expected better from Song Tangming, couldn't help but nod in agreement. Song Tangming, this little bastard, although he was sloppy and didn't have the slightest bit of integrity, even an old-fashioned person like him couldn't help but admire him. Only now did I realize how foolish I was. Only now did I understand why that little bastard didn't care whether he was an inner saint or an outer saint or an inner saint. Han Zheng also sighed and said, just as he said, no matter if it's a white cat or a black cat, it's a good cat as long as it can catch mice. Therefore, whether it's inner saint or outer saint or inner saint, it's just a means to him. It's not even a means at all. We've always been conflicted about this, but we've ignored the suffering of the common people in the world. How laughable is this? Wang Qing was very self-deprecating. He felt like he had lived half his life as a dog. Methods were important, but doing things was even more important. If one didn't put it into practice, how would they know if what they insisted on was correct? The answer was in the process of putting it into practice. Practice was the standard to test all truths. The 5 of them all thought of the words that Chu Yang had said when he debated with them in order to escape their torment. Such a dry sentence was just a fart to them at first. However, at this moment, they realized that such a sentence was filled with great wisdom. Chapter 2399. In the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm, after Chu Yang wrote down the 4 lines of Henku and entered the core area, the entire Sage Monarch Mystery Realm was enveloped and drowned in endless light, turning into a world of light. It was like heaven, a kingdom of heaven, only light, no darkness, only joy and no sadness. Although Shi Danfeng did not enter the core area, there was already a great power descending from the light, invading her mind, wanting to change and control her mind. The power of the Wen Dao in the mind, the method to control the mind. After being shocked, she resisted with all her strength and tried to comprehend. If she succeeded, she would be able to comprehend the mystery, but if she failed, her thoughts and consciousness would be completely changed. Unlike Shi Danfeng, Chu Yang passed through the barrier. As soon as he entered the star-like world, the magnificent historical scenes unfolded quickly in front of him and were imprinted into his mind one by one. This should be the history of the One Dao era. Xia, Shang, and Western Zhou. Eastern Zhou was divided into two parts, the Spring and Autumn period and the Warring States period. Qin and Han were unified, and Wei, Shu, and Jin were divided into three parts. Northern and Southern dynasties existed side by side, and Sui and Tang were passed down for 5 generations. After the Song, Yuan, Ming, and Qing dynasties, the dynasty ended. Chu Yang felt that the first half of the history was not very different from the history of his previous life. The only difference was that the names of the dynasties and the main characters of the dynasties were completely different. There was also a history similar to that of Confucius traveling around the countries and writing the Spring and Autumn Annals. There was also a history of Mencius inheriting the teachings of Confucius. However, as Chu Yang knew before, in the One Dao era, the founder of Confucianism was not Confucius, but Qin Zi. Mencius was Chu Zi. The path of Confucius and Mencius became the path of Qin Chu. Dong Zhongshu proposed the unification of the Spring and Autumn Annals and the abolition of the 100 schools of thought, and only Confucianism was respected. With Confucianism as the philosophical foundation of the country, other ideological systems were banned. Thus, Confucianism became the orthodox ideology, and the study of the 4 books and 5 classics became prominent. These historical events were similar, but in the One Dao era, that person was not Dong Zhongshu, but Lu Shuang. In the One Dao era, Qin Zi was the first Confucian master, Chu Zi was the second, and Lu Shuang was the third. Later on, the history of the One Dao era was gradually different from the history of Chu Yang's previous life, and the history of the One Dao era was much longer. With the appearance of the 4th Confucian master, all of the literary works, poems, paintings, articles, and scriptures were turned into spells. However, a certain amount of time was required before the spells could be cast. But because of this, the poetry, calligraphy, and painting of the One Dao era flourished. The appearance of the 6th Confucian master made the use of literary Dao even more powerful and removed many of its drawbacks. One could even use the power of literary Dao to refine one's body, making one immortal and indestructible. One would not enter the cycle of reincarnation and become a Confucian immortal. The appearance of the 9th Confucian master allowed the Confucian way to reach a new peak, but at the same time, he personally destroyed the entire Confucian era. The mountain ridges are like a gathering point, the waves are like angry waves, the surface of the mountains and rivers is the Tongguan Road. Gazing at the western capital, he hesitated. Grieving over the Qin and Han dynasties, thousands of palaces turned to dust. Rise, the common people suffer. Fall, the common people suffer. Just like this poem said, the rise and fall of the 9th Confucian dynasty caused the common people to be in an abyss of suffering. He encouraged them to change and build a great harmony world. Thus, he created the Great Harmony Sutra to control the spirit energy of everyone in the world to achieve his goal. Chapter 2400. Hiss. In the end, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He said in disbelief, controlling the spirit power of all the people in the world, forcibly raising their awareness, forcing the hearts of all the people, and establishing a world of great harmony. This can actually be done successfully. Unbelievable, truly unbelievable. The more he thought about it, the more incredulous he felt. It felt like a dream. What was the most difficult thing to control in the world? There might be many answers, but he firmly believed that the human heart was definitely one of the answers. How could the human heart be controlled? The human heart was ever-changing. How could it be controlled? He felt that the 9th Confucian master had definitely been kicked in the head by a donkey. However, this fellow who had been kicked in the head by a donkey had actually created the Datong Sutra that controlled everyone's hearts, establishing the world of great unity, and even maintaining it for a year. This is definitely a bluff, an unprecedented bluff. The failure of the 9th Confucian master was inevitable, but to be able to defy the heavens for so long, Chu Yang could only offer his knees and express his endless worship. Of course, his desire to obtain the Great Harmony Sutra was even more intense. Once he obtained the Great Harmony Scripture, then he would become a monster, a demon, and a god, and would be able to intimidate others. Why did I lose? When Chu Yang's eyes were shining, a hoarse voice suddenly emerged from the bottom of his heart. The ninth Confucian master? The ninth Confucian master didn't die, or is this just his remnant consciousness? He was shocked. Just as his mind was filled with doubt, he suddenly felt a great force breaking through the air. It was overbearing and pervasive, invading his mind in an instant. It wanted to control his thoughts, control all of his thoughts and consciousness. Great Harmony Sutra! How could it be played like this? Chu Yang's soul almost left his body. The Great Harmony Sutra's control was equivalent to the soul power, and it made his scalp tingle. If the soul of everyone in the world could be controlled, how could he resist? However, he didn't have any leeway to choose. Investigate things to achieve knowledge. Zhu Shi's Confucianism, because it developed in the direction of spells in the era of Wendao, did not form. It was directly used by Chu Yang, but it was instantly shattered and not worth mentioning. The focus of Confucianism is on reason. It can't form any resistance against the soul power. When he understood, he directly used Wang Mingwen's philosophy of mind. The heart is reason. The path of the sage is self-sufficient, seeking reason from it is wrong. The heart is reason, there is nothing outside the heart. This philosophy of mind was like a dam, temporarily blocking that mighty force. At the same time, another voice from the bottom of Chu Yang's heart emerged again. There is nothing in this world that is outside of the heart. What does the flowers in the deep mountains bloom and fall by themselves have to do with the heart? Confucianism's Confucianism was one extreme. Was the philosophy of the mind not? It is no longer outside of your heart, but when you see the flower the flower's blooms is. Teat outside its heart. B its is t beast inside. T. Because his sophistry actually lasted for a long time, but in the end, in the silence, the defense formed by this principle exploded with a loud bang. Chu Yang was shocked, but also very happy. The Great Harmony Sutras might not be unstoppable. After all, the era of Wendao had been destroyed, and the ninth Confucian master was dead. At most, only a remnant of his consciousness was left. To achieve conscience. Chapter 2401. There is no good or evil in the body. There is good and evil in the body. Knowing good and evil is conscience. Eliminating evil for good is investigation. Wang Mingwen's theory on the study of the mind had been exhausted. Just now, the great force had been slowed down. The voice of inquiry once again emerged from Chu Yang's heart. What is the heart? What is the meaning? Immediately, Chu Yang broke out in a cold sweat. The theory of the study of the mind was suspicious of playing with concept. Since there was no good or evil in the heart, why was there good or evil in the mind? The mind was born from the heart. If there was no good or evil in the mind, then there should be no good or evil in the mind. In that case, there was no place for conscience. The 4 sentences he came up with were a chaotic language full of contradictions. With a boom, while Chu Yang was hesitating, his soul was greatly shaken. The great force directly broke through the obstacles of the study of the mind and directly blasted into the depths of his soul. You lost because you went against the law of social development. You lost because you also violated the laws of social development. In this critical moment, Chu Yang could only throw these out. At this time, his forehead was already drenched in cold sweat. In such a short period of time, he felt that he was going to become a philosopher, a great person in the history of mankind. He was a sloppy guy who only wanted to hug his wife to sleep. One day, He actually had to think about the changes of society and the ultimate direction of mankind. How ironic! If this were to be known by his friends in his previous life, he would probably be laughed at to death. What he learned in school had become his life-saving straw. What are the laws of social development? What are the laws of social development? The voice in his heart seemed to have taken a long time to understand the meaning of the word, society. It took a long time before it asked the question. The laws of society are realized through the conscious actions of people with a certain purpose and intention. Chu Yang did not know what he was saying. Anyway, he was a little confused about this point. He simply threw out the concept of technology as productivity. Then, without waiting for the voice to ask, he immediately spoke again. The development of things is a process. Everything can only realize its own development after going through a certain process. Chu Yang didn't care about the dual nature of things, contradictory nature, quantitative change, and qualitative change. He threw them all out. It seemed that he had finally blasted that questioning voice into a daze. And that invading mighty force had also completely stopped. The literary Tao was originally just poetry, calligraphy, paintings, articles, classics, and the like. When it was transformed into spells, it would become technology and productivity. But is that so? After a long time, this voice came out again. He was almost scared to death. The ninth Confucian master is not dead, and even if he is definitely not completely dead. This ninth-generation Confucian master is truly astonishing, and it's not like he can't say that. When the way of Confucianism turned into spells, it definitely changed the world at that time. If this continues, I'm afraid that my identity as a transmigrator will be completely exposed to him. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Chu Yang finally got straight to the point and said, "You can put it that way, but the reason why you failed is because I think you can control people's minds, but not matter. Matter determines consciousness, and consciousness is just a reaction of matter. Matter is the primary attribute, and consciousness is the secondary attribute, so of course you will fail." Chu Yang didn't know whether this statement was correct or not, because the world he was in did not follow the rules of his previous life at all. It was a completely different world. The voice fell silent again. After a long time, it said, "You're saying that I have controlled the world of the mind, but not the world of matter. The world of the mind is attached to the world of matter, and the world of matter is the foundation. That's why I failed, right?" Chu Yang's head hurt. "Don't ask me such a profound question. I'll kneel down in front of you, okay?" He sighed again in his heart. The ninth Confucian master is definitely a bluff. If it was in my previous life, those so-called great people would have been killed by him in a second. I don't know. I still need to think deeply about all this before I can decide whether it's right or wrong. Chapter 2402. In the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm, time passed like water. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. In the Sage Monarch College, Zhang Zhiyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang had long regained consciousness. However, their Wendao had been taken away, and their minds were severely injured. At first, when the 3 of them were asked what had happened in the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm, the 3 of them kept silent. After all, it was a humiliating matter, so how could they say it out loud? However, the 3 of them knew that paper couldn't wrap fire. In addition to their resentment towards Chu Yang, after a discussion, they began to make trouble and frame Chu Yang. Their lines were roughly the same. Song Tangming was despicable and shameless. He took advantage of the time when they were comprehending the mysteries of the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm to launch a sneak attack on them, severely injuring them. Not only did he take away the mysteries of the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm, but he also took away their Wendao. If they didn't take revenge, they wouldn't be gentlemen. The 3 of them even threatened that they wouldn't give up until they killed Song Tangming. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples, and the sage monarch college was instantly in an uproar. Because of this, Zhang Juyan and the other two finally learned how amazing Song Tangming was. He had violently passed the 18 stages of the strange gate path, killed a saint in the Nirvana realm, and trampled on the son of the subduing general, Yang Lini. They couldn't help but be shocked. Song Tangming was far more amazing than they had thought. Not only was no one comparable to him in terms of Wen Dao, but he also left them behind in terms of martial Dao. Therefore, the three of them were a little nervous. They were afraid that they would lose their reputation if they failed to slander Song Tangming. Therefore, they dragged Shi Danfeng into this and pushed Song Tangming to the point of eternal damnation. Because of this, slander spread like wildfire. Song Tangming had used despicable methods to take Miss Xiaoxiang's virginity, and thus obtained her. Word spread like wildfire through the Sage Monarch Institute, and even to the Central Continent. The Sage Monarch College was shocked. The Central State was shocked. Every day, many young talents rushed to the Sage Monarch College in anger, causing the entire Sage Monarch College to become the eye of a storm. Of course, there were people who doubted it, so the commotion wasn't that big, and the world wasn't turned upside down. But even so, Xiao Xiang's admirers couldn't stand it. At that moment, the students of the Sage Monarch College realized that their headmaster and the others didn't care about what was going on at all. It was only after they learned that the headmaster and the others were all in seclusion at that moment. Something big must have happened in the Saint Monarch Mystery Territory. Everyone from the Saint Monarch College had no more doubt. However, the Saint Monarch Mystery Land was extremely mysterious. No one could enter it, especially now. Therefore, everyone could only wait. Another 3 days later, Xiao Xiang's talented master Danfeng was also sent out of the Saint King Mystery Realm. Her face was deathly pale. That mighty force had invaded her mind, and in the end, she couldn't resist at all. The reason she was able to escape in the end seemed to be because of that scoundrel. That mighty force had been merciful. As soon as she came out, she was drowned in public opinion. She was questioned by her admirers, and she couldn't help but be furious. She was also embarrassed, unable to show her face. The matter between Chu Yang and Zhang Juyan and the other two was easy to deal with, but the matter between her and Chu Yang was hard to say. Moreover, Zhang Juyan and the other two said that Chu Yang had taken her virginity, and she had only just gotten together with Chu Yang. It was close to the truth. Naturally, she couldn't say the truth. In the end, she could only lie, saying that she and Chu Yang had known each other for a long time. She couldn't lie about love at first sight, but she tacitly agreed to her relationship with Chu Yang. Chapter 2403. Because Chu Yang was slandered by Zhang Juyan and the other two, Shi Danfeng was angry and chased after them. However, there were also masters of the Earth Emperor realm around them, so she returned without success. The matter became more and more serious, but Sui Kaichang and the others did not show up at all. Instead, it was the gigolo Wei Xian who showed up, laughed presumptuously and said, "Song Tangming, that bastard, is really shameless. He even snatched his talented girl Xiaoxiang." He expressed that he was in so much pain that he wanted to die, and he must fight Song Tangming to death. Wei Xian, this gigolo, stirred up trouble. Chu Yang became the target of public criticism. Everyone wanted to beat him up, and everyone wanted to kill him. On the 8th day, such momentum reached its peak. Shi Danfeng could do nothing about it. She only hoped that Chu Yang would not come out of the Saint King's secret realm so soon. In the Saint King's secret realm, Chu Yang and the 9th generation Confucian master discussed for 8 days and 8 nights. He really wanted to become a supreme philosopher and all kinds of theorist. In the process, he even brought out the theory of evolution, natural selection, and survival of the fittest, and traced back how people were formed over a long period of time to prove the point that matter determined consciousness. The 9th generation Confucian master was indeed impressive. Chu Yang's fantasies were quickly recognized, digested, and even introduced new ideas. Chu Yang was full of admiration for the ninth-generation Confucian master. Therefore, in the end, Chu Yang's statements were all recognized and passed the test. I am a sinner. The ninth-generation Confucian master had died completely. This was his obsession, which had not dissipated for thousands of years, and he still could not let go of it until the end. He sighed deeply. No, you are a wise man and a great man. Chu Yang did not completely agree with him. Although the ninth-generation Confucian master had good intentions, but he did bad things and destroyed the entire era of Wendao with his own hands. His wisdom and courage were admirable. In the surging tide of the times, every reformer was not necessarily successful. The only difference was that the ninth-generation Confucian master failed, and the consequences were too tragic. However, he could not be completely denied because of this, and he was worthless. At the very least, Chu Yang did not dare to show any disrespect to such a person. Chu Yang realized that what he had said was not convincing enough, so he added, "At least you've proved that your path is not feasible. You've given the future generations a great reference, and this is the greatest wealth." The rolling Yangtze River flows eastward, and the waves wash away all heroes. Right and wrong, success and failure vanish in the blink of an eye. The green hills were still there, and the sun had set a few times. The white-haired fisherman and woodcutter sat on the riverbank, accustomed to the autumn moon and spring breeze. A pot of turbid wine was a happy reunion. So many things from the past to the present are just joke. The ninth Confucian master recited slowly and finally said, "Where is the green mountain? Where is the setting sun? Where is the autumn moon and spring breeze? Laughing about the matters of the past and present, who is it?" The destruction of the Wendao epoch was too tragic. All living beings died. The ninth-generation Confucian master could not let it go. Chu Yang could understand. Perhaps it should be said that if he were the ninth Confucian master, he would not be able to bear such a heavy burden and the interrogation of his conscience. The green mountains were still there, and the sun had set a few times. So many things from the past to the present are just joke. Chu Yang said sincerely, "Senior, forgive this little one for being arrogant. This little one regards an epoch as a dynasty, and the rise and fall of an epoch is like the rise and fall of a dynasty. How about I judge Senior's right and wrong? Senior, you are not guilty. First Senior, you are already a dead man." Ha ha! The ninth-generation Confucian master could not help laughing loudly. When a person dies, everything is gone. The Wendao epoch is over, and everything is nothing. What is the point of worrying about it? Miserable, miserable, who was he putting on this show for? Second, Senior, you are a bluff, an unprecedented bluff. The ninth-generation Confucian master could not help laughing again. He liked this evaluation of bluffing. Chapter 2404. This time, the ninth Confucian lord did not laugh. He suddenly asked, "Are you willing to be my disciple?" Chu Yang was caught off guard and was speechless. What sort of character was the ninth Confucian lord? Why would he need to be enlightened? If the ninth Confucian lord could not untie the knot in his heart and let go of his obsession, how could he help him do it? He was overestimating himself. This little one is willing. Saying this, he dropped to his knees and said, "This disciple greets teacher." Good, 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 ha ha! The ninth Confucian lord said a few times and then laughed. After that, there was no more sound. Chu Yang did not know what was going on, only that a sutra had been imprinted into his mind. The Great Harmony Sutra. In his surprise, he understood everything. The obsession of the teacher he had just acknowledged had imprinted everything he wanted to say, including the Great Harmony Sutra, into his mind, and then completely disappeared. "Teacher, have a safe journey." He dropped to his knees once more to send his teacher off. After standing up, his heart was filled with emotion, and many of his emotions were quickly covered by the mysteries of the Great Harmony Sutra. The chapter of enlightenment, the chapter of etiquette, the chapter of morality. In the blink of an eye, Chu Yang saw 3 illusory worlds as he searched for such a majestic and mysterious aura. These 3 worlds could be called the world of enlightenment, the world of etiquette, and the world of morality. Through enlightenment, the Confucian path instilled the concepts of benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, trust, gentleness, respect, and frugality into everyone's mind, thus forming the various etiquettes and morals of the world. In the Great Harmony Sutra, this was the first level. Through this, one could enter the minds of others and control them. The second level was even more mysterious and difficult to understand. Chu Yang could only memorize it, unable to comprehend it for the time being. Along with the appearance of the 3 worlds of education, etiquette, and morality, in search of these 3 worlds, in the darkness, lights were lit up one after another, spreading out infinitely and finally forming a huge net. This net could be described as an inescapable net that caught everyone in the world, the net of the mind. It's really amazing. To be more precise, Chu Yang was horrified. If he could grasp such power, it would be extraordinary. If he wanted to use it to do evil, the consequences would be unimaginable. He was even worried that if he grasped such a terrifying power, he would lose control, lose himself in such power and doing whatever he wanted. These were definitely not empty words. A supreme technique like the Great Harmony Scripture was really too shocking and terrifying. The amount of power it could seize was unimaginably enormous. He could not even describe this feeling. To say that he was in control of a nuclear arsenal, such an analogy could not be compared at all, because he could easily control anyone with the help of the De Tong Sutra, which was much more terrifying than a nuclear bomb. There was no reverence. Only now did Chu Yang realize how terrifying this was. Fortunately, there were too many powerful figures in the Tianhan world, especially in the Central Plains. For example, Zhua Kaichang, Yu Fuji, and the other 4. Chu Yang could feel them, but he did not dare to easily enter their minds. From the net of the mind, he could feel all kinds of emotions. Ordinary people would think of daily necessities, and then think of their wives, children, and parents, and all kinds of other trivial matters. Martial artists would think of all kinds of techniques, who to beat, how strong to be able to not be bullied, the 7 emotions and 6 desires, all the emotions of a person. Chu Yang could almost feel them all in an instant. It made him feel as if he had become the embodiment of the heavenly Tao, as if he was in control of everything in the world. There was nothing he could not do, nothing he could not do. Waking up with a killing sword, lying drunk on a beauty's knee. Chapter 2405. The Great Assimilation Scripture could not be described with words. If such a supreme technique were to be spread out, the entire middle ground would fall into a frenzy. Grasping it was like holding a hot potato in one's hand at all times. Teacher only asked me to be his disciple, and he actually gave me such a supreme technique. Isn't he afraid that I will commit crimes? When Chu Yang thought of this, he could only smile bitterly and shake his head. As a teacher, when passing such a scripture to his disciple, he would definitely give him some advice before passing it to his disciple. However, the 9th Confucian master was too reckless. Teacher, you really have confidence in me. Chu Yang could only sigh. To be honest, he did not have much confidence in himself because it was too easy to lose control after grasping such a supreme technique. He would completely sink into depravity and destroy his life completely. In fact, he regretted accepting such an inheritance because after accepting such an inheritance, he had to constantly remind himself not to be willful. Otherwise, he would make a huge mistake. A single mistake could lead to everlasting sorrow. This was the case for ordinary people, but it was even more so for those who grasped great power. The greater the power one grasped, the greater the consequences would be. His teacher, the ninth Confucian master, was the best proof of this. He directly destroyed the One Tao era. If he destroyed an era, he would never be able to get over such a knot in his heart. Be careful, be careful. I definitely cannot use the great assimilation scripture easily. Chu Yang secretly warned himself in his heart. Then, he began to cultivate. Buzz. Spirit force gushed out and enveloped him. Then, with another move, he turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the heart net. In such a short time, he had already left the Sage King's secret realm. When he reappeared, he was already at the place where Bing Kuan died in Zhuangyuan Mountain. It was very shocking. At this moment, even he was inexplicably shocked. His entire body trembled. It's really terrifying. The heart net is not only like the heavenly Tao, but also like a national road network specially opened for me. I can move freely, and I can reach all directions with just a thought. However, I can go anywhere that mortals can go. He was frightened once again, but he was even more excited. With the heart net in hand, even great emperors could forget about killing him. He could escape at any time. The heart network was a network of the soul. It was originally an illusion, but it could switch between illusion and reality. It was extremely dreamy and inconceivable. It was completely beyond human imagination. Chu Yang was like a child who had just gotten a new toy. He carefully felt all of this and slowly experienced this wonderful feeling. He was very clear that the reason why his body could enter the heart net was naturally because of the spirit force enveloping him. Spirit force was the means of transportation, while the mental network was the road network. Buzz, buzz, buzz. From the heaven and earth, inexplicable mysteries surged over. It seemed to be the great Tao, but it also seemed to be something else. They quickly gathered, condensing into pieces of formation seals that floated around Chu Yang. They were extremely bright and resplendent, like the stars in the night sky. They flickered and shone brilliantly. Among them was Chu Yang and Starlord. He had finally broken through and become a true Saint Array Master. The joy in his heart was even greater. Chapter 2406. To a certain extent, the heart net is. But it is the heavenly net, which should be comparable to the heavenly way. If I can enter the heart net, then can I enter the heavenly way? He suddenly had such a throbbing. Once he succeeded, he could kill a great emperor in the Nirvana realm. In the martial arts system of the heavenly spirit world, the saints became their own great Tao, and the great Tao entered the reincarnation cycle and became the earthly sovereign. Then, with the help of their own Tao, they entered the heavenly way, and their souls were placed in the heavenly way, and they became the great emperor. When the earthly sovereign realm entered the reincarnation cycle, it was not his own body or life that entered the reincarnation cycle, but the great Tao. The reincarnation cycle was not the reincarnation cycle of several lives, but the reincarnation cycle of the great Tao. The reincarnation cycle of the great Tao was actually a test of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Many saints' great Tao could not withstand such a test. Once the great Tao entered the reincarnation cycle, it completely collapsed and died. Although Chu Yang's body carried the great Tao, he had not become a saint, and had not stepped into the earthly sovereign realm, but he had found the way to enter the heavenly way, which was very heaven-defying. Phew! Finally, he let out a long breath and gave up the idea because it was too risky. Once he failed, he would die completely. He was very clear about this point. Once it involved the great Tao, it was extremely dangerous, especially when it involved the heavenly way. Reckless attempts could only lead to eternal damnation and a tragic death. He quickly suppressed the throbbing and then laughed. Let's put this aside for now. But if I can kill saints in the Nirvana realm, kill earthly sovereigns, and kill great emperors, it should not be difficult to realize such a wild ambition. After a while, he completely calmed down. While he was reminiscing about the ice koan on Zhuangyuan Mountain, he suddenly realized that the world around him had become clearer than ever before. He could even faintly smell the ice koan's aura, and his mind was shaken again. Koan Koan is not dead. Although a long time had passed, Chu Yang still caught the breath of the ice koan with the help of the Datong scripture. The ice koan seemed to use the whole world as an ocean and wanted to be reborn in it. It was no longer a sea, but a sea. This in itself was a kind of transcendence. The ice koan koan was transcendence. Haha, good job, koan koan. When I see you again, I will be able to do whatever I want in the Central Plains. When Chu Yang confirmed this point, he was extremely happy and laughed heartily, because there was absolutely nothing happier than this. Compared to obtaining the Great Harmony scripture, this news made him feel much happier. He was sure that when he saw the ice koan again, the ice koan would be an extremely powerful existence. Shua. After staying in the top scorer mountain for a period of time, he once again enveloped himself with his spirit force and entered the heart net. He roamed about, getting used to the environment and familiarizing himself with everything. In the heart net, he seemed to have obtained absolute freedom. He was like a koan pung roaming the universe. Such a spell was even more shocking than spacetime spells. After a while, Chu Yang returned to the Saint Monarch Mystery Domain. After paying respects to his master, the ninth Confucian Lord, he left the Sage Monarch Mystical Realm and returned to the Sage Monarch College. Song Tangming is out. Song Tangming is out. Song Tangming is really out. As soon as Chu Yang came out of the Sage Monarch Mystical Realm, he was in an extremely good mood with a smile on his face. Immediately, he heard many shouts. Chapter 2407. What's going on? It seems like these things want to attack me? Because of the Datong Sutra and the Mind Network, Chu Yang could easily see through everyone's emotional reactions at this moment. As a result, he was extremely disgusted. Everyone had no secrets in front of him. Without another word, he directly shut off this perception. He wanted to live like a normal person. In addition, sometimes knowing too much was a kind of pain and made one feel that the world was incomparably dark. This was definitely not a lie. If one could see through everyone's hearts, they would definitely see endless ugliness and darkness. It's really Song Tangming. There's no mistake. Hurry up and inform the three absolutes. Song Tangming is dead for sure this time. Who does he think he is? He dares to treat Xiaoxiang's talent like this. Xiaoxiang's talent. When Chu Yang heard this, he finally understood. His wife had caused him trouble again. As expected of a femme fatale. Song Tangming, you despicable thing. You actually used such a dirty method to take Xiaoxiang's talent for yourself. What's done can't be undone. What a good idea. Do you think you can think of it and no one else can think of it? Force yourself on her. I'll let you know what public anger means later. I'll let you know what it means to die without a complete corpse and be torn into pieces. There was no need to wait. Chu Yang now knew the public anger. There were countless people surrounding the entrance of the Sage Monarch Mystic Realm. At this moment, the eyes of these animals were all as red as rabbit. I don't know how I came out of the Sage Monarch Mystic Realm, but you've been blocking me here. How much do you hate me? He was able to completely sense that sort of extreme resentment and hatred. He also did not understand how the words, "What's done can't be undone," or "force yourself on her," spread. Could it be because of that girl, Shi Danfeng? Chu Ong was not afraid of those angry rabbit eyes. He touched his chin and muttered to himself, "It shouldn't be. How could she say such a shameful thing? Could it be that she has realized the danger and wants to tie me down tightly?" The latter possibility was just Chu Yang's self-ridicule. He had realized that things were not that simple. He had heard the words, 3 absolutes, just now, so he had a general guess in his heart. Although using the heart net allowed him to know everything in an instant, he would never use it even if he was beaten to death. Shoo! Shoo! At this time, the sound of something breaking through the air was heard. When Chu Yang looked up, it seemed that there was a flock of birds flying towards him from the void in front of him. The void was densely packed with people. Kill that bastard Song Tang-ming. Kill him, we must kill him. If he doesn't die, my anger won't be quelled. We must seek justice for ourselves. During this time, many people sensed Chu Yang's presence from afar, and began to yell crazily, as if Chu Yang had a blood feud with them. #yen, I've become public enemy number 1 again. Although Chu Yang was not afraid, he was not happy. He cursed in his heart. Dong dong dong. The ground shook violently. 3 figures were the fastest. They arrived in the blink of an eye like a beam of light. The 3 of them landed on the ground and beat the ground like a big drum. They surrounded Chu Yang in a triangular formation. Bastard, you actually dare to come out. You really don't know what's good for you. If I were you, I would hide in the sage monarch's secret realm until I die of old age. Otherwise, I would be torn apart alive when I come out and beg for death. Son of a bitch, I'll definitely repay you for all the despicable things you did in the sage monarch's secret realm today. Not a little less. The moment the 3 of them saw Chu Yang, they seemed to have thought of some hatred and humiliation that was deeply engraved in their hearts. They seemed to be about to explode. Zhang Zhiyan, Zhao Lang, Wu Feng. Chapter 2408. He didn't know how many people had arrived in a short period of time. The crowd of people was densely packed. People were everywhere. It made Chu Yang feel as if he was in a bull ring. However, he was going to fight 3 very strong bulls, not just one. He was the bullfighter, and Zhang Zhiyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Feng were the 3 very strong bulls. It seemed that because one person fighting 3 bulls like this, it was very rare, so it attracted a lot of attention, and countless people came to watch. It was a hubbub of voices, and it was very noisy. Everyone who came to watch the bullfight seemed to be talking about how Chu Yang, the bullfighter, was going to fight later, how he would lose, and how badly he would lose. Of course, Zhang Zhiyan and the other 2 bulls were also the focus of discussion, because they were 3 very famous bulls, and were even known as the best of the bulls. Their fighting strength was off the charts, and who knew how many bullfighters they had killed in the past. Moreover, between the bullfighters and the bulls, there was a pink story of a peerless beauty, which made it even more lively. Hee 3 seniors, where did you get the courage to stand in front of this great genius so arrogantly? Could it be that you want to be slapped in the face? Chu Yang glanced at the 3 people who were rushing over, and picked his ears, and said very casually, "Wait, this gigolo is not here yet, your performance can't start yet, please wait a moment, this gigolo will be here soon." Someone interrupted at the wrong time, and before Zhang Zhiyan and the other 2 could angrily counterattack, a white figure had already shot over. Immediately, a gigolo that was more delicate, fairer, and more beautiful than a woman was imprinted in everyone's eyes, causing many people to exclaim in surprise, and let out sounds of disbelief. This white figure was sloppy and roguish. He found a place and took out a stool. Please note that this stool was definitely not something transformed by cultivation, but a small stool made of real materials, made of wood by a carpenter, and it was very delicate, obviously specially made. It was specially made to watch a show. There were not many people like this, and it was even rarer to have such a gigolo and be so unconventional. Chu Yang's kindred spirit, the gigolo Wei Xian. He was also a joker. This gigolo has already sat down casually. My kindred spirit, you can start your performance. Wei Xian sat on the stool casually, like a local rich man ordering opera singers to start the performance. Wait, my performance hasn't started yet. How can you guys start in advance? As soon as Wei Xian's voice fell, there was an unconventional voice not far away, and then 4 or 5 young people dressed in gold and silver flew over and landed next to Wei Xian. Among these 4 or 5 people, one of them was holding a folding fan. He thought that he was cool and unrestrained as he fanned himself. His pair of sharp eyes immediately stared at Chu Yang. He poked his finger and loudly shouted, "Hey, Song Tangming, you have big guts! You actually dared to have designs on Xiao Xiang's talented girl. Did you get the permission of this rich man? Be careful or I'll smash you to death with money." Another clown, stealing the show in all sorts of ways. Since when was of these jokers? Chu Yang couldn't help but cast a sidelong glance at this clown. Xia Wanjin. Since when did this guy become like this? He was very surprised. What surprised him the most was that Xia Wanjin was already a 9th level saint. Furthermore, he was definitely a very powerful one. Chapter 2409. This thing is advancing really fast. I didn't expect it to change so much in such a short time. Chu Yang was delighted to see a familiar face. He smiled like a blooming flower. At the same time, he heard a lot about Xia Wanjin from the crowd. Isn't that Xia Wanjin from the Xia family? He's a rising genius in the Tai capital. I heard that he managed to advance from the Nirvana realm to the 9th Order Saint realm in just 2 months. That's amazing! Not only that, it's said that he can communicate with the Emperor's seal of the Xia family's old ancestor. He's the most important successor of the Xia family. The Xia family is as rich as a country. Even though they've declined, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Now that Xia Wanjin is here, Song Tangming will definitely suffer. Let's not talk about other things. If Song Tangming dares to touch Xiaoxiang's talent, Xia Wanjin can kill him with money. During this time, Xia Wanjin had countless chances to speak. However, when he saw that bullshit Song Tangming, his eyelids twitched and he immediately restrained himself. He also noticed Chu Yang's strange reaction. He was surprised to see him and even seemed a little happy. This caused the bad feeling in his heart to become even more intense. What's wrong with this? Fortunately, I'm using Chu Hang's method. Even if I'm slapped in the face, there's still room to maneuver. Xia Wanjin's mind raced. He realized that Chu Yang was extremely cunning and treacherous. He didn't expect such a frivolous attitude to have such a great effect. No matter what, I'll give him a big mouth first. He made up his mind and rolled up his sleeve. He shouted at Chu Yang, "Hey, you bastard, why are you surprised?" He became more and more agitated as he continued, "Are you surprised that I'm rich and have a lot of money? But why are you smiling so happily? I'll make it clear that I don't have any special hobbies. Don't disgust me." When Chu Yang heard this, he was stunned again. Is this still Xia Wanjin? When did Xia Wanjin become so despicable? He dared to guarantee that this was definitely not the Xia Wanjin he knew. Even if Xia Wanjin's parents or relatives saw him like this, they would probably be dumbfounded and astonished to the extreme. "You bastard, don't pretend that you're my comrade. I know you're just putting on an act. You haven't learned anything about shameless Upanishads." Chu Yang's words caused Xia Wanjin's eyelids to twitch violently. Why did this disdainful tone sound so familiar to him? Let this gigolo appraise and see if fellow Daoist Song's opinion is correct. When Xia Wanjin's eyelids twitched, the gigolo had already stood up from the small stool. He walked around Xia Wanjin in a carefree manner and sized him up. Only then did he curl his lips and say with extreme disdain, "Fellow Song is an experienced person. His judgment is correct. This little brother is really just for show." He completely didn't comprehend the true meaning of shamelessness. What a pity. Fellow Song Tongdao's level is indeed very high. Then Wei Xian patted Xiao Wanjin's shoulder and encouraged him earnestly. The path of shamelessness is long and dangerous. Little brother, you haven't succeeded in being shameless. You still need to work harder. Xiao Wanjin's eyes widened like copper bells. However, no matter how hard he stared, he couldn't make Wei Xian embarrassed. Instead, Wei Xian slowly turned into a bird in his eyes. To be precise, he was a parrot. Chapter 24:10. Song Tangming, you despicable villain. You're about to die, yet you still dare to be so arrogant. Originally, Zhang Jian, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang could have attacked Chu Yang long ago. However, Song Tangming was too powerful after all. Therefore, in order to gain more support and show their righteousness, they had to wait. However, the three of them didn't expect that Xiao Wanjin, who looked very powerful, was shameless because of his so-called bullshit shamelessness. What kindred spirit! His shamelessness was almost the same as Song Tangming. This was intolerable. The scene was too funny and almost destroyed the three of them. They couldn't let it continue. However, Chu Yang didn't care about their violent reactions. His eyes suddenly looked into the distance. Everyone seemed to have completely ignored the three of them, and all of them suddenly looked into the distance. Suddenly, a few voices came from afar. They couldn't hear what they were talking about, but they were strangely ethereal, as if they were transmitted from the ninth heaven. It also sounded like the whispers of immortals, attracting everyone's attention in an instant. Someone else is coming. Swoosh. Sure enough, a long rainbow came directly from there, like a bridge across the other shore, crossing immortals and mortals. As soon as the rainbow arrived, there was a series of screams. Many people were seriously injured by the impact and were thrown away. Then, a series of immortal and heavenly music came. In a sea of auspicious light, a few young men and women floated down. These men and women were all wearing feathered clothes and star crowns. Around them were illusory and misty, with rays of light lingering around them. They looked like they had come from the immortal world, and the moment they arrived, they seemed to make people smell the scent of the immortal realm. These people were majestic and fearful, and there was a kind of threatening sharpness on their bodies, which made people very wary. Chu Yang sensed more than the others. The heavenly gates above the heads of these young men and women seemed to have opened a void passage that connected to some unknown world. There was an endless stream of air surging in and pouring into their bodies, causing their cultivation to constantly increase. Immortal? Chu Yang's eyes narrowed. The heavenly soul world's immortals were actually from a destroyed epoch, the immortal epoch. Although the immortal epoch was destroyed, there were many people and even many sects that survived during the immortal epoch. They had once revealed the tip of the iceberg 10,000 years ago. At that time, the entire heavenly spirit realm was shaken. However, after that, they disappeared without a trace. In the recent 100 years, the survivors of the immortal era, as well as the sects, started to become active in the heavenly spirit world. This caused the people of the heavenly spirit world to have a deeper understanding of the heavenly spirit world. This also caused them to be even more shocked because the survivors of the immortal era were simply too powerful and too shocking. In the central continent, there was a saying that grand emperors were inferior to immortals, or grand emperors were not immortals. What the former meant was that the great emperors were still limited to the heavenly soul realm, while the immortals had jumped out of the entire heavenly soul realm. If the heavens and earth were destroyed, the immortals wouldn't be destroyed. If the heavens and earth decayed, the immortals wouldn't die. The latter was that grand emperors were not immortals. It meant that although grand emperors had great power, they had the same lifespan as the heaven and earth. They could be considered immortals, but they were definitely not immortal emperors. Whether it was the former or the latter, it only explained one thing: the strength of the immortal era and the strength of the immortal era. There were as many sages as dogs in the central region, and grand emperors were everywhere. This saying was also caused by the appearance of the immortal era. Many people used the techniques of the immortal era to break through to the sage, earthly sovereign, and even grand emperor realm. Many sages, earthly sovereigns, and even grand emperors emerged. Of course, although there were many of them, it wasn't to the extent where sages were as numerous as dogs, and grand emperors were everywhere. It was just that the number of sages and grand emperors was definitely not small. Because of the strength of the immortal era, they were highly respected and had an extraordinary status. The sects that survived the immortal era were generally called immortal sects. Obviously, these people should be people from the immortal era, people from the immortal sects. Chapter 24:11. I'm immortal, and they're immortals. This is tantamount to me being a fish on a chopping block. This was not a good feeling. Chu Yang was feeling this way now. The most important reason was that these people from immortal sects were definitely here to cause trouble for him. Everything he knew about immortals and the immortal epoch came from Shi Danfeng. If not for Shi Danfeng, he would probably have known about this much later. After all, he had not been in the central province for long. Naturally, Shi Danfeng did not take the initiative to tell him all this. In the Sage Monarch's secret realm, Shi Danfeng did not pass the test and her mind was about to be completely controlled. His teacher, who was also the 9th Confucian master, asked him what he wanted. His answer was obvious, so Shi Danfeng was able to escape. Although his teacher agreed to let him save Shi Danfeng, Shi Danfeng's test also had to be taken by him. Therefore, during this process, he learned about Shi Danfeng's background and everything about the immortals and the people of the immortal epoch. In fact, Shi Danfeng was also from the immortal epoch, the Xiaoxiang sect. Based on Shi Danfeng's memory, Chu Yang not only knew that these young men and women were here to cause trouble for him, but also knew that they were from the immortal sect, the Rui sect. He also recognized all of them. Most of the people who came riding the rainbow were handsome men and beautiful women. Every one of them contained great power. However, if one was confused by the illusion, one would definitely not be able to detect the most powerful person among them, Rui Zi. Among these young men and women, there was a man who looked extremely ordinary. He was like a scholar in the secular world. He did not seem to have any cultivation. He stood in the air without any auspicious aura or great majesty. He was completely different from the others. He looked like a servant. However, because of this, Chu Yang knew more about his extraordinariness, returning to one's natural state. This person was Rui Zi, the first successor disciple of the immortal sect, the Rui sect. He had been in love with Xiaoxiang sect for a long time, but he had never won her heart. Therefore, when he came, Chu Yang knew that he was in trouble. I'm afraid it will be a little troublesome to deal with this Rui child. Chu Yang unconsciously frowned. If he hadn't obtained the inheritance of the One Dao era, he wouldn't have had the confidence to deal with this Rui Zi. The arrival of Rui Zi and the rest of the people from the celestial sect silenced the entire place. Not a single sound could be heard. Zhang Jian greets Rui Zi and everyone. Zhao Leng greets Rui Zi. Wu Fang greets Rui Zi. When Zhang Jian and the other two saw Rui Zi, their eyes immediately lit up, and they hurriedly greeted Rui Zi. The three of them showed enough reverence. When they saluted, they were very humble. They bowed again and again. They were even more respectful than a subject meeting the emperor. Regardless of whether it was respect or reverence, it was all because of absolute power and power. However, to Zhang Jian and the other two, they still had hope and extravagant hope. They hoped that the Rui Zi would be able to give them some pointers and extravagantly hope that the Rui Zi would reward them greatly for their performance. Greetings, Rui. Greetings, Rui. Greetings, Rui. After Zhang Jian and the other two, everyone else also saluted Rui Zi and the rest as if they were greeting their own emperor. Among the people present, Chu Yang, the pretty boy Wei Xian, and Xia Wanjin were the only three who didn't salute Ru Yizi. It was very eye-catching. Is the celestial sect so powerful that everyone has to suck up to them? Chapter 24:12. Ru Yizi did not even look Chu Yang in the eye. He only cupped his fists and returned the greeting to everyone. He looked humble, but his arrogance was undeniably evident, and it was even more vivid. Everyone, I came here in a hurry and was a little careless. I'm very sorry for injuring so many people. As Ru Yizi spoke, the people from the Ru Yi sect beside him couldn't help but reveal looks of disdain. It was as if they were wondering how he could be so weak. They had merely come here on a rainbow, yet he couldn't even block it. As a token of my apology, here are some fortune pills. Treat them as an apology. I hope that everyone will accept them. Every person who was injured by the rainbow accurately received a white pill, without missing a single one. Fortune pills. It's actually the fortune pills. It's true. It's really the fortune pills. We've made a huge profit this time. Loud cries of surprise immediately erupted. Ecstatic expressions appeared on the faces of those who obtained the fortune pills as they hurriedly kowtowed to Ru Yizi again. Ru Yizi merely smiled faintly. However, the expressions of the people beside him became even more disdainful. Many thanks, Ru Yizi. Yu Rui's voice of gratitude quickly resounded throughout the place, causing Chu Yang's frown to deepen. It was just a mere medicinal pill, but so many people were deeply grateful for it. There must be something mysterious about this so-called fortune pellet. Chu Yang had only seen a portion of Yu Danfeng's memories when he was expelling the mighty power that had invaded her body. He hadn't seen everything. After all, everyone had their own secrets that they didn't want others to know. Hence, he hadn't gone overboard. You are Song Tangming. Amidst the excitement and joy, the Ru Yizi suddenly looked at Chu Yang and spoke. Immediately, the entire place fell silent. Everyone felt nervous for no reason, as if they were facing a great enemy. This Song Tangming was too insensible, and it was very likely that he would anger the Ru Yizi. Therefore, Chu Yang was not surprised. What was to come would come in the end. However, he wasn't happy. He didn't like it when someone looked down on him from above. I am. He met Rui's gaze carelessly, crossed his arms and said with a grin, I am a pear blossom pressing against a begonia, the one who is loved by all, the one who has never been seen before and will never be seen again, Song Tangming. Wah-ha! As he spoke, he put his hands on his hips and laughed wildly. The one who wants to steal this marshal's prestige. Have you ever been to a brothel? Have you ever been to a brothel? Have you ever stolen or swindled? Hurry up and report it. Interesting, very interesting. When the Ru Yizi heard this, he was like a prince who found it very novel after seeing how the poor live. He couldn't help but smile faintly. Waha, of course it's interesting. It would be strange if it wasn't. Chu Yang didn't feel good being looked down upon like this. He continued to laugh wildly and said, I've always been an extremely interesting person. If you feel that I'm not interesting, then it's not that I want to criticize you, but your life will certainly be very boring. You need to work harder. Are you going to show me how unruly and unrestrained you are? Chapter 24:13. Ha ha! Chu Yang's signature chuckle was heard as he sneered in his heart. Did I specially prepare you to be unruly and unrestrained? Who do you think you are? At that moment, when Xia Wanjin saw his expression again, this extremely familiar expression, he immediately felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He trembled and roared in his heart, It can't be! Could it be that this bullshit Song Tangming is actually Pit Chu? Suddenly, he somewhat understood why the gigolo was looking at that lousy bird. It was clear that Chu Hang had once again created a parrot, but this time, the parrot had become a person. You're really narcissistic, but I found a good point about you. You're actually more narcissistic than me. There are definitely not many people who can surpass me in this aspect. You should be proud of this. When Chu Yang looked at Rui Zi and gave him a thumbs up as a compliment, Xia Wanjin no longer had any doubts in his heart. He immediately concluded that the so-called Song Tangming was definitely that goddamn Chu Hang. No wonder there's actually something that can break through the 18 stages of the Strange Gate Road with brute force. No wonder there's actually something that can kill a saint at the Nirvana realm. No wonder the talented Xiaoxiang was taken down by lightning so quickly. He immediately figured it out. Why did a bluff suddenly appear in Zhongzhou? So it was Chu Hang. It was Chu Hang. What was there to make a fuss about? In this aspect, he was a professional, an expert, and a beast. Damn Chu Hang, you son of a bitch. It's not enough that you stole the talented Xinxiang girl that I like. Now, the talented Xiaoxiang girl is my last hope, and you actually stole her. You son of a bitch, are you forcing me to fight with my life on the line? Xia Wanjin was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. He cursed in his heart. Chu Hang was such a bitch. His dog claws were simply covering the sky. All the peerless beauties in the world were snatched into his bowl, not even leaving a single dregs for him. This was really intolerable. Acting presumptuously in front of me is not a very wise choice for you. The Rui child's icy voice jolted Xia Wanjin out of his own world. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes. The Rui child was angry. Being more impressive than me is not a very wise choice for you. Chu Yang smiled indifferently. Tit for tat. His sloppy expression was gone, and the atmosphere was tense to the extreme in silence. Schwa. At this moment, another person arrived. A rainbow light shot over, and a fragrance instantly filled the air. A woman wearing a veil had already arrived at the scene. Xiao Xiang, talented girl. All of a sudden, everyone recognized him and cast their gazes over. Rui Zi immediately nodded at Shi Danfeng, but she ignored him. Wife, can you make some noise? Also, before you come, can you give me a message so that I can welcome you? Wife. These two words pierced into everyone's hearts like knives and swords. The atmosphere suddenly froze. Then, anger burned the heavens. It was as if the heavens were enraged. Countless angry gazes were directed at Chu Yang like tongues of fire. However, he didn't care at all and continued to show off. He complained to Shi Danfeng, "Look, this is great. Your husband wasn't prepared. How am I supposed to prepare a grand welcoming ceremony for you?" Buzz. The void suddenly vibrated endlessly. The Rui child couldn't tolerate Chu Yang calling her his wife. In an instant, it was as if a king was enraged, causing the world to suddenly sink into a deathly stillness. It was extremely oppressive. Everyone felt as if a knife was pressed against their neck. They felt cold all over and didn't dare to breathe loudly. Many people started to tremble, and some even collapsed to the ground. The surrounding void seemed to have been frozen, and the murderous intent seemed to have materialized. Not many people could withstand such murderous intent. The Rui child was extremely terrifying and unimaginable. Once he was angry, it seemed as if the world would change color. Chapter 24:14. Rui Zi was enraged. Heaven and earth seemed to be frozen. Everyone present felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave. They felt cold from head to toe and were on tenterhooks, not daring to move at all. Pretty boy Wei Xian and Xia Wanjin also looked serious. Rui Zi was a member of the Immortal Sect, the first true disciple of the Rui sect. He was extremely shocking and definitely not easy to deal with. Wife, someone wants to bully your husband. Amidst the stillness, this sudden shout left everyone in disarray. Some even saw stars. They were extremely nervous and even fearful as they waited for the earth-shattering change. Who would have thought that they would be caught off guard and be so shameless? They almost wanted to kneel down in front of such shamelessness. Ha ha! Pretty boy Wei Xian laughed like crazy. Xiao Wanjin was speechless. He was even more certain in his heart. If this thing isn't Chu Hang, I'll cut off my head and use it as a chamber pot. Shi Danfeng's delicate body also trembled violently. She was also caught off guard. She never thought that the scoundrel would shout at her like that. Her face suddenly turned red, and she was too ashamed to show her face. However, she had no choice. As her chest rose and fell, her beautiful eyes swept towards Ruizi. All of her anger was vented on him. Who are you trying to scare? Domineering but not elegant. Chu Yang immediately shouted, Wife, don't bother about this matter. Your gentleness and elegance have disappeared. The consequences are too serious. I'm about to break out in cold sweat. Shi Danfeng's delicate body swayed and she almost fainted. This scoundrel actually said that she was unladylike in front of others. Who was she doing this for? Wife, don't be agitated. Be careful not to affect the baby. Shi Danfeng still hadn't recovered from her shock when another sentence came out of nowhere. Her head was dizzy and she was so embarrassed that she almost died. Bang bang bang. She moved and instantly appeared in front of Chu Yang. She directly beat up Chu Yang in front of everyone, causing pretty boy Wei Xian and Xiao Wanjin to laugh like crazy. This was too outrageous. Was this something a normal person could do? Everyone also felt as if they had been beaten up. The sudden incident between Chu Yang and Xiao Xiang almost turned them into idiots in an instant. Ruizi was practically dumbfounded in midair. The talented girl he had admired and pursued for a long time was actually being played by someone he looked down on again and again. He had never seen Xiao Xiang lose her composure like this before, and he had never seen her with such strong emotions. She loved and hated someone so much. Song Tangming, how do you want to die? In front of Xiao Xiang, Ruizi no longer maintained his composure. He completely tore apart all of his pretenses. Disgust, anger, and all sorts of other emotions were completely released. His face was extremely gloomy, as if his ancestral grave had been dug up. Chu Yang was proud, but he still felt that it was not enough. He pulled Shi Danfeng into his arms and even took a bite of her when she was not paying attention. Only then did he smile at Ruizi and say, "Hitting is kissing, scolding is not loving enough. Is this enough? If you have the ability, come and bite me." Shameless. Everyone has the right to punish a cultured scum. Song Tangming, you should be hacked into pieces and die without a burial ground. Ruizi's heart was directly pierced by Chu Yang's knife. However, before he could go crazy, Zhang Zhiyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang had already rushed out to attack Chu Yang on his behalf. Chapter 24:15. The three of them naturally knew which was more important between the civil path and the martial path. The civil path was only used to disguise their identity and make them appear noble. The martial path was the essence. When their strength increased, who would dare not fear them? Misfortune was a blessing in disguise. The three of them could not help but want to laugh. The humiliation in the sage monarch mystic realm had turned into a great blessing at this moment. Chu Yang saw through the thoughts of the three of them. He despised them in his heart, but he said with a smile, "Can you change the last sentence of these three things? What should be cut into pieces, die without a burial place, and have no lethality at all?" After a pause, he sneered at Ruizi, "You little thing, are you planning to let these three spineless pieces of trash hinder me? What are you thinking? Are you really stupid or pretending to be stupid?" Everyone was shocked. These words were too arrogant. Song Tangming was only at the peak of the Nirvana realm. How could he kill 3 ninth-stage saints? Are you worthy of my attack? Ruizi was able to control his emotions after his extreme rage. "Tisk," Chu Yang said disdainfully, You're only at this level. The so-called immortal sect is only SOSO. Whoosh. The crowd was in an uproar. Not only did Song Tangming mock Ruizi, but he also mocked the immortal sect. Did he have something to rely on, or was he so ignorant that he was fearless? Ha ha! Zhang Jian laughed loudly. Song Tangming, you bastard. How can you compare to Ruizi? If he attacks, he will really dirty his hands. Why use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken? Even my hands will be dirty if I kill a piece of trash. I want you to beg for death. Zhao Lang and Wu Fang also laughed. The more arrogant Chu Yang was, the more benefits they would get after killing Chu Yang. There was nothing better than this. Can't even beg for death? He said impatiently. Your last sentence is really too cliché. There's no novelty at all. So, this commander wants to severely criticize you. That's right. That's why I want to criticize you. Ha! The gigolo Wei Xian and Xia Wanjin laughed like crazy again. However, only the two of them could laugh out loud. Only the two of them could laugh. The two of them laughed even more bafflingly. What was so funny about this? Could it be that Song Tangming's arrogant and ignorant words were really that laughable? While Shi Danfeng was nervous, she saw Wei Xian and Xia Wanjin laughing non-stop. She suddenly felt that her understanding of Chu Yang wasn't as good as Wei Xian and Xia Wanjin's. The Rui child's expression darkened even more. Song Tangming, why are you so arrogant? Wu Fang roared angrily. You don't even know what you're talking about. I've never seen a fool like you. I alone am enough to kill this idiot. Brother Zhang, Brother Wu, don't interfere. Zhao Lang was even more direct. He stood out and wanted to kill Chu Yang by himself. Chu Yang could kill a saint in the Nirvana realm, but the saint he killed was only a first-level saint. Moreover, it was an old servant. How could a saint like that compare to him? There was a great difference between saints. Besides the level of saints, there was also the difference between ordinary and extraordinary saint. If Yang Lini's old servant Yang Fu was an ordinary saint, then Zhao Lang was an extraordinary saint. Although they were both saints, he could kill at least hundreds of Yang Fu. Because he was a genius, while Yang Fu's talent was only average. Wife, go to the side and watch the show. Chu Yang let go of Shi Danfeng. She blushed and warned, be careful. Okay. Chu Yang nodded lightly. Chapter 24:16. You can make your move now. Chu Yang was extremely frivolous as he hooked his finger at Zhao Lang. Humph, Song Tangming, do you think you're invincible just because you can kill a saint in the Nirvana realm? Today I'll show you how stupid you are. Roar! Before Zhao Lang could finish his words, 3 loud dragon roars were heard. Behind him, the void on his left and right twisted and turned into 3 huge dragons that were hundreds of feet long. It was as if they had used the void as material to condense a true dragon. Their methods were astonishing. Dong. Then, he took a step forward and the earth quaked and the mountains shook. The heads of the 3 dragons connected and transformed again, forming a 3,000 feet long dragon. It covered the sky and the sun, and cast an enormous shadow. The vigorous aura of the great Tao swept through the entire area. This was naturally not a dragon, but Zhao Lang's Tao. The crowd was already exclaiming. The Tao of the dragon, Zhao Lang's Tao of the dragon. A great Tao that's 100 feet long can withstand the test of the first reincarnation, and so on. A great Tao that's hundreds of feet long can pass the 9 reincarnations and become an earthly sovereign. But Zhao Lang's great Tao is actually 300 feet long. Oh my God! A great Tao that's 300 feet long. Song Tangming will definitely die this time. There's no suspense. If he doesn't die, then there's no justice in this world. The length of the great Tao reflected the strength of the great Tao to a certain extent. Zhao Lang's great Tao that was 300 feet long was revealed. The crowd was shocked. They all thought that Chu Yang would definitely die, and there was no suspense. Chu Yang was unmoved. He didn't even move. Ant, are you scared out of your wits? Then I'll end your pitiful life and send you to hell, divine dragon Dao. Roar. Amidst the loud dragon roars, Zhao Lang entered the 300 feet long dragon and charged forward with his great Dao. He was like a dragon, and his Dao was like a dragon. His Dao was like a dragon, causing one's heart to sway. But the dragon swung its tail, and with a crisp sound, the void was torn apart like a piece of paper. A spatial storm surged, and that part of the void was in chaos. Wherever the dragon passed, the void couldn't withstand it and exploded. His momentum was unstoppable. Gods and ghosts fled, shaking one's heart and soul. Everyone felt as if they were facing a falling star when they saw such a huge dragon rushing towards Chu Yang. They felt as if the end of the world was coming. Their breathing couldn't help but stagnate. They felt as if a great disaster was about to befall them. It was easy to imagine the pressure that Chu Yang was under. He casually stood where he was, letting his long hair flutter in the wind. The path of the dragon was as fast as lightning. Everywhere it passed, it arrived before the space that was crushed into pieces. Seeing that Chu Yang was about to lose his life on Zhao Lang's path, he finally made his move. But to everyone's disbelief, he actually just lightly stretched out his hand and grabbed that huge dragon. A body of flesh and blood against the great Dao. How could this be resisted? That was Dao, Zhao Lang's great Dao. Before it, the void was like a piece of paper, unable to withstand it at all. Was he crazy? However, an unbelievable scene happened. In front of the 3,000 feet long dragon, Chu Yang's hand, which was not worth mentioning, was so small that it could be ignored, actually blocked the huge dragon. It seemed to have some kind of magical power. Everyone was so shocked that their nerves went numb, and they became sluggish. They heard Zhao Lang's screams and saw him being thrown out of the huge dragon, but there was no reaction at all. The strangeness continued. The huge dragon instantly shrank, turning into a loach, and was caught by Chu Yang. He exerted force with his hand again, and that loach was really like a loach directly crushed to death. It was effortless. Everyone was dumbfounded as they watched the scene with blank eyes. The world was completely silent. Chu Yang's body burst out with endless rays of light in such silence. It was extremely dazzling and completely submerged the world. However, it was only for a moment. Everyone didn't understand what was going on, and everything was already over. Bang, bang, bang. When three muffled sounds rang out, everyone subconsciously looked over and found that Zhang Zhiyan, Wu Fang and Zhao Lang had already died, but their hearts did not fluctuate at all. That was no longer important. What was important was that killing saints like killing chickens had become a reality. Song Tongming's cultivation was only in the Nirvana realm. How did he do it? This was like a world puzzle, and no one could understand it. Their minds were blank, and they fell into chaos. Perhaps only Song Tangming or Ruizi could answer it. Chapter 24:17. Zhang Juyan and the other two died. Their hearts stopped beating and their blood began to coagulate. Their bodies lost their body temperature and quickly became cold. Everyone present seemed to be like the three of them. Their hearts stopped beating, their blood began to coagulate, and their bodies began to become cold. Cold to the bone. Ferocious ghosts appeared behind the dark night, a demon suddenly appeared in the void, or the hand of the grim reaper gently stroking their faces. It did not seem so terrifying and frightening. Not long ago, Chu Yang broke the record and killed a saint as a Nirvana realm cultivator. It was already unbelievable, but now he killed a saint as if he was killing a chicken. All below the saint were ants. This sentence seemed to be the complete opposite. All below the ants were saints. The order of the world seemed to have been completely reversed. At least at this moment. In everyone's eyes, Chu Yang had reversed the order of the world and subverted the world in everyone's eyes. Zhang Juyan and the other two died. To them, it was as if the world was destroyed by Chu Yang. There was no sound, only fear in their eyes. No one thought Chu Yang was funny at this time, but they thought he was terrifying. However, all of this was normal for Chu Yang. He had made a breakthrough and became a complete saint-level array master. A saint-level array master could temporarily use the great path of heaven and earth as a seal to form a large array. Different arrays, different seals, and different paths, so the paths were changeable. A saint-level array master's path was changeable, but a saint's path was unchanged. Based on this point, a saint-level array master was much more powerful than a saint. In addition, a saint-level array master used the great path of heaven and earth to form a seal. It was like using the terrain to set up a formation. The great path formed was far more powerful than a saint's great path. To make a simple analogy, a saint-level array master used mountains to set up a formation. The mountains were the great path of heaven and earth that the saint-level array master used, while a saint's path was just a hunter. The difference in strength was obvious. Although the latter was more flexible and changeable, it was not as powerful as the former. Many factors led to a saint-level array master being far more powerful than a saint. A saint-level array master was only one of them. Chu Yang's body was equivalent to a growing world. His path was the embryonic form of the heavenly path. After realizing this, it was very easy for him to kill a saint. He had obtained the inheritance of the ninth Confucian master, made contact with the mind net, sensed the heavenly Tao, and even attempted to master the heavenly Tao. Everything was even more different now. He had seen the entire heavenly Tao, and his comprehension of the heavenly Tao was at least on par with the earthly emperor realm. However, that was not all. The heart net of all living beings could be said to be a heavenly Tao. In addition, the ninth Confucian master had used the heavenly Tao as a reference to the primordial heart net as a foundation to construct an even more perfect heart net to control the hearts and minds of all living beings. After obtaining the inheritance of the ninth Confucian lord, Chu Yang's understanding of the heavenly Tao had increased by countless levels. Compared to him, the trio of Zhang Juyan was like a child. He had crushed the great Tao of Zhang Juyan and the other two, so it would be too easy for him to kill the three of them. Therefore, he merely smiled at all of this. He didn't feel the slightest bit complacent because this couldn't be any more natural. It would be a joke if he couldn't do it. Plaything, can you dirty your hands now? Chu Yang broke the silence. He wasn't interested in seeing Rui Zi's aghast expression. Crash. As soon as he said this, it was as if a mirror had been shattered. Many people seemed to be hurt by the fragments and couldn't help but be shocked. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.